Lloyd's only got 45 minutes before his curfew, so let's shimmy it along, shall we?
I've even got a curfew at home.
At home, the circuit breaker gets turned off. Turns the fucking lights off.
Right, it hasn't actually started because I need to have a fag. All right?
What, outside or?
Come on, start.
All right, Harry.
Run.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait. No, there we go. Fucking. Go on, lads. Right, there's 4 of you.
Yeah, but if you put it onto 4 squares, when Lloyd comes back in, Iz'll just fill it all up.
I was going to say,
With his
I'm
massive
surprised,
fucking face.
surprised Lloyd's head fits on the fucking camera.
Right, so yeah, so I can. There's one of you missing. That's all. That's not too bad. It's just Marv at the moment. Marv missing. I'm missing Marv.
Freddy Krueger.
This is my most like 2005 top. I never even wore these, but I mean, it's
very Franz Ferdinand.
The worst part is, right, do you know how long I've had this top? About 3 weeks. I bought it off Mike Robert at a party.
Off Mike Robert at a party?
Yeah, Mike Robert was like, oh, Marv, you'll like this. I was like, well, I don't. He went, oh, he bought it recently, and he was like, oh, he palmed it off on me because, number one, I'd buy it for a laugh, but number two, he bought it because it was new to him.
Fucking hell. So, but then at what point did he like try and get money out of you?
Yeah, no,
Like after the fact, like a week later?
that is very 2005, buying shit at a party or swapping.
Yeah.
Off Mike Robert.
Just trying to
Buying something at a party that's not drugs.
I don't know, mate. You look like you're pretty off the red wearing it, mate.
that might be a factor.
I was going to say, did anybody actually call it in?
What you were talking about? You left out.
Freddy Krueger.
Come on, guys, it's Halloween.
Fucking hell, it's been my Earl's obsessed with Halloween. It's been Halloween in here since August. You want to see my
Nice.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Gone through 4 sets of 4 pumpkins, gone rotten. Literally.
Like, but
the next
pumpkins
4
in pumpkins in August.
Well, I'm exaggerating as per usual, but it's been Halloween for a good 2 weeks in this house.
Yeah. Oh, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
And that ain't an exaggeration. Let me go get my wine.
Bloody hell.
No.
No, back
No,
to
right.
the-
It's like you've not had time to set this up. I've got cans lined up. Already open. Just so it
You
don't
look
make a
like-
noise.
Dobby, you look like you're in a real decent Berlin toilet.
Yeah, you do.
Club foot.
Club foot.
Me and Kerry have been drinking it all year, but we've gone into the Zinfandel one now. Yeah.
I've been drinking Club Gout when it's going to kick in for Christmas.
But I nearly got a bottle of red. But
Kick out the gout, motherfuckers.
How are you, Harry? You all right?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yes,
He's fucking regretting his fucking got into this.
yeah, have
You ain't going to get one question. Fucking one question.
Just good that I ain't got any booze.
Yeah. Oh, what?
Harry, you
yeah,
fucking idiot.
fucked up.
No, you're not.
Shame on you, lad.
Anything involved with this band has to involve booze. That's just like a fucking given.
Even if people don't want to, like Tom probably didn't want to drink, but he felt obliged.
I just text Grant and I was like, I better go to shop, and
Because you're only going to get ragged if you fucking don't.
I mean, there's loads of
need to prove that I've not got
Marv probably been drinking all day, haven't you, mate? Or maybe you're on a dry period. I don't know.
You know about mine?
Yeah.
The dry period.
This is a cocktail shaker full of rum.
Oh, nice.
That's a lot bigger than a pint. You know what I mean? So,
Right, so if we kick off, guess a good place to start would be, what did Tom get wrong on his podcast?
I haven't listened to that fucking shit.
Oh, what did I miss out?
No, there was like gaps. There was gaps, years. In fact, sometimes
Yeah.
you've gone from here to here. It was good. I liked it. I like them
I
all.
was all over the place, though, but it just made me remember how much I don't remember.
That's why we bought Grant.
But I think
I've got notes.
it was good. Like your podcast was good, but it was like quite earnest and honest. So you're like, tell us about the music, and it literally was like genuinely digging in his heart to speak like honestly and truthfully. And a bit funny here and there, but when someone's not sat next to you poking, you're calling you a cunt, then it's not as easy to bounce off it. So you know, Tom's was like a nice guided history like framework, and we can hang like loads of like horrible extra information off the end of it.
Yeah.
So this is like full blown 12 steps, all in a room.
All between the lines. Yeah. Literally.
We're going to give you the bells and whistles version of it.
All right, nice one. And I guess Tom really didn't explain how he got together, but am I right in thinking he got together at college?
No, not really. Me and Marv went to college together. So I think how we got together, this is my version of it, is I knew Tom through mutual friends. I went to Cot and we used to sort of knock around houses, getting stoned basically. And but then I used to bump into him in Piper, Priya's night, Yo-Yo on Newland Ave. We used to go there, they had an indie night on a Friday, and I used to see him every Friday. I'd be there.
Name dropping like, already.
Yeah, well, so you've got to get the old legends in. And I'd be like, we were in the band because we formed this band because he came in our heads. He came to this house party and he went, "Oh, I like your glasses." Had these like,
oh, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, pink, kind of John Lennon glasses. I was sat next to the record player listening to whatever John, my mate's house, he had all these records. I was like going through these records, and he's like, "I like your glasses." And then we met and we kept in touch a little bit, but before texting and all that lot. So when you saw each other, that's how you communicated back then. And so then we was like, "Oh, we're in that band. Remember that band?" And he'd be walking around. It's like Ian Brown sort of fluffy jacket on. And eventually we got our act together because I'd be at college, Wyke, and that's why I met Marv. And Marv was then. Grant obviously is my brother.
Well, yeah, but I'd just started at Wyke, so you'd already been pissing about for a couple of years, pretending to be there, and then I came to piss about for a few years, and then that's when it started. Cause I do remember it being winter and like going into a rehearsal room, and I'd literally had to walk from Wyke College all the way to Hayworth pub, dragging a piano, a keyboard.
Oh yeah. Because we rehearsed behind it. We used to rehearse behind Hayworth.
I brought somebody with a keyboard.
Then that same time, so I knew Lloyd. I'd known Lloyd and Grant a bit before, like when we were really young kids. Me and Lloyd met again at college. I told Lloyd I was learning guitar. Showed him how I could play. I've been playing for like 3 months as a closet case or whatever. Lloyd went, "Join my band." It's like, "Great." Said, "What's the deal?" And he said, "My brother's the drummer." Fine. And he went, "And I found a kid." I was like, "Who's the kid?" And he was like, "Oh, you'll fucking hate him. He's sound as fuck. He thinks he's Ian Brown, like shagging Liam Gallagher." Which I was fine with. And I remember the first time I met Grant, that's when me and Lloyd were at college. Me and Lloyd were at college. The first time I met Grant, I think it was like the White College kind of Christmas party thing. So there was like a performance on in the hall, and I met Lloyd. Went, "Oh, this is my brother." At no point I'd have thought to ask how old Grant was, because Grant walked in like a pristine yellow, like I don't know, maybe like a Ralph Lauren shirt or something, undone to the middle of his chest, absolute chest hair pouring out everywhere. He sat like a triangle, and I'm thinking, God, this guy could rip my head off. But he seemed quite nice, and me and him sat together watching this performance, and we're getting along, having a laugh. And I was like, "How old are you, mate?" And you just turned around and was like, 15.
I was still at school. I decided, me and my mate Savvy decided that we weren't going to school that day because we was going to go to the White Christmas party thing because there might be some girls.
Who was that? What was his last name again?
Savvy.
Yeah. And so me and my mate decided that we was going to go there.
Yeah, but that was I was playing, so that was like the first proper gig I'd ever played on, and I'd met Marv, and Marv like Marv said, he was playing guitar, and before that, anyway, I remember going to, and he was like, "What's the lineup?" I said, "I'm playing guitar." And I said, "You can play bass." And he went, "No, I'm playing guitar." And I went, "Oh, all right." And I'd been playing guitar since I was 11. He'd been playing 3 months, and I mean, he wasn't like Jimmy Page out, but he was good. But somehow I just went, "Yeah, all right, I'll play bass." I had this Steinbecker 80s neck headless bass.
The Aswan bass. The
Aswan bass. But when Grant met Marv, I was playing with a group of kids. It was like we put a band together, and I sang and played Faith by George Michael. It was awful. dressed up as a new romantic. I remember getting on the bus off Orchard Park, going "fuck it." I had the makeup on. I didn't give a shit. You know, when you think you're Ace, you don't give a shit. It was like the first time I walked out the house on Norfolk Estate. I used to get called gay in inverted commas because I liked the Beatles on Norfolk Estate. It's like ridiculous. I was like, now I'm going out dressed as a new romantic. Like my mum was like, gloves on. Fucking ridiculous. But that's just about that time though. I'm going around the houses, but about that time, that's when we first started to rehearse, and it would have been us 4 in back of Airworth pub. It was like it was Tom's dad's business. It was like a warehouse. We rehearsed there, and there was us 4. There was another kid, Danny, who was in the band, big Beatles head. And
wasn't it just us 4 at first?
I think it was. No, yeah, I think it was us 4 at first,
and then Danny joined, and it was like. So it was like a mixture of like me and Marv and Grant are all off Norfolk Estate. There was a link to Cottingham, and it was like kids. Like Tom would have been 18 when we first started playing, and me and Marv are the older 2. So
and then obviously this was pre Josh. There was members before Josh joined the band.
Yeah.
So he came in later when we realised that
he had equipment.
Yeah.
he had good equipment. Do you know, like the kid who got real good stuff for Christmas.
and
saying that's bad. That's bad really. My dad got us all equipment and stuff, and we was all the music in my house, and we got equipment. But he was like he had amps, like proper.
Yeah, but then he also had parents that was willing to transport it as well.
Yeah.
All the facilities essentially.
And then they built you a studio as well.
That was a later on.
Yeah, very later on.
At this point, there's no such. We did not know what a studio was.
Yeah, and really, Tom was all right, but we only got Tom because his dad had a warehouse that we could rehearse in.
Yeah,
it came to fruition as a lead singer later, but really, Tom at the time, it was just a necessary evil to get the band going.
I think you were the one invited in, weren't you, Marv? You were a Mosher one,
yeah. Oh, Mosher Marv.
Oh, it's started already. No,
Lloyd was like, yeah, my mate's all right. He can play guitar. I think he's a bit of a Mosher though. So, didn't you used to just listen to
Green Day?
Album no,
Origin of Symmetry.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so it was
Muse.
Mine was I had like a knockoff satellite box when I lived on North Hull. So I had MTV2. So it exposes you to a lot of. Well, it was quite diverse at the time, but it was during that whole, it was like Green Day was the more legit stuff, and then it went, what was it called? What was like Limp Bizkit and all that? What was
new metal.
Yeah, new metal. But basically, I used to just like distortion. So when I met Lloyd was like, look, mate, you don't have to be a mosher. Listen to the Sex Pistols. So I was like, oh shit, soz. I apologise for my mosher ways. I've apologised ever since. But
to be fair, they are very good albums.
Oh yeah, do you know? To be honest, I've been listening to Muse. Fucking
Muse. Now I'd probably listen to it now.
Oh, so now you come back with that.
Yeah.
Right. So, but like, so this was like. This wasn't even when we was the band, though, really, was it?
Not really.
We weren't even playing any sort of music that was anywhere close to it. That was the sort of origin story of the ashes of what it turned into. Josh was kind of when the band actually started, wasn't it? Really,
yeah.
Right.
Before that, I mean, who wants to hear about us playing the Blue Tones and Slight Return?
Yeah,
not many people.
You're right. When we got that band sorted with Josh in it, and we started to rehearse regularly, that's when we started writing music. And I guess at the same time, the new rock revolution stuff as the NME coined it, or later on Grot and Roll or whatever, that was getting churned out when we was all avid buys of the NME. Was Melody Maker wouldn't have been there, but NME every other week. So we're starting to knock around with each other, become proper mates, playing, and this music's getting churned out week in, week out, and you're getting like the NME would have a CD on the front of it or whatever, and that's when we started writing music. That's when I remember when we wrote one of our first songs we wrote properly. What we was really chuffed with was 21. And I remember we weren't rehearsing upstairs that day for whatever reason. We rehearsed downstairs in the warehouse, and I remember us all going, "That sounds like the Datsuns." Do you remember that? It was like
yeah. Remember that?
It was the intro. It kind of had that rock thing, but then we kind of made it what it was. Do you know what I mean? It was like a punk tune, like proper 1977 stuff.
But there was something about like the start of that for us to not be like caught up in. There were bands who had been out in Hull who we'd listened to, and they'd be like, well, I won't name names, we might do it later, but like, kind of, Dad Rock, fucking, like, all this kind of like oldie pastiche stuff.
Places just at the bottom of Epplewith Road.
I wonder how it could mean, but like the bands who were very happy to emulate stuff, and as we were just getting good, just learning our instruments and getting together as a group and starting to have the confidence to write, was at the same time when there was a shitload of bands who are probably our age or a few years older who were releasing stuff that was completely different. Oh, yeah. We got to bounce off that. So that is like when it, as Lloyd says, New Rock Revolution, when the Strokes were coming out, White Stripes, Libertines, like all those bands started all of a sudden just going, here's a list of influences that we draw from, and this is our result. So all of our influences and things we thought all got mashed together. So Tom singing like Liam Gallagher, that became relevant to put in the context of me playing guitar because I listened to a lot of the Sex Pistols or that stuff. Lloyd's songwriting coming from, I've listened to the Beatles all my life. He's not trying to emulate the Beatles, but he knows how to write a tune. So all of that stuff started to combine to allow us to write our own music, to bounce off this stuff that was becoming very relevant at the time, and it just gave us like that release.
I mean, Hull was very behind in its music, but it was a really buzzing scene. But I mean, this is like well, the internet was there, but it wasn't like what it is today. It was message boards and things like that. But I think as we started with the NME and then bands and the New York scene and all that sort of stuff, we was always looking outwards as opposed to not looking backwards.
I get that, Dobbo. I don't want to have a debate, but I was thinking about this just earlier on today, and yeah, we were outward looking in comparison to that last wave of bands in Hull that Marv's referring to, which was on the back of Britpop. That sort of that was going down, and that they were looking backwards. But you've got to remember, and I don't want to make this podcast episode about Hull music.
Go on, Dad.
But there was loads of stuff going on at that time, which was really relevant and finger on your pulse. So there was like, for a start, Fonda 500 were existing.
Oh no, I mean, I do mean that, you know.
Oh, Freak Shooting existed, but we was in our own bubble.
In our bubble, that wasn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Yeah, and we weren't allowed to meet those bands until we established ourselves as, like, we had to fight tooth and nail with our. It was like, oh, they're a trendy indie band, and actually it was more, we're a punk band, and we were trying to go places and do stuff. So there was a lot of bands at the time who were very creative, who just had a better record collection or CD collection at the time, but like better than us. So we were kind of in a position to fight for our position and fight for the bands that we're into.
Yeah.
At that time.
Right.
So anyway, Harry, that's how we formed.
I did want to ask about you, Lloyd and Grant. Like, did you play music together when you were growing up, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Hated each other.
We pretty much did it all together. We're at that age gap where you kind of, I hung on to his coattails, and my mum probably made him take me out with him. So we was always doing something together, and mostly fighting, I guess.
Fighting rugby and music.
Fighting rugby and music, yeah.
We had music in the house all the time. So my old fella Les, he's a musician. I'm a folk musician, really into folk music. So there was always, my dad started playing stuff when he was probably about late 20s, 30s. He didn't play it all his life. But from the point of him being that age, there's music in the house. And I remember going to my dad when Oasis hit, and I want a guitar, basically. I want a guitar to go, and we had a Samba and my tracky top. And he did, he got me it. And then the same with Grant. Grant was like, I think Grant went to a Trinity House drum. We went to a naval school in Hull, and they had a drum corps. I think he went to that, and that led to him asking for a drum kit. And from that point onwards, we played in the loft upstairs. We had played with a couple of. We weren't musicians. In fact, the one time we had an actual musician came to the house. I think he did one rehearsal, Ryan, and we went, "Okay, see you later." Yeah, you're too good. But we always played.
Ryan still plays about now. He's and he's still one of the most accomplished musicians around, Joe, and people are just naturally gifted, and you're like, how do people do that? And he's still knocking on. I remember them in his band.
No, I was just saying we did. We played all the way probably up to the Paddingtons forming or that period. We was playing in and out, and I know Grant had his own little band, and I had a little bit here. And no, to be honest, nearly every single band up to that. Grant's been my drummer. I think Grant had a little band.
I mean, we're making out like I actually had a choice in all this.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like the Cribs said there, basically, was Ross was born. They just moulded him into a drummer. Is that what happened to you a bit?
Yeah. I've got not a leg to stand on that one. That was pretty much what's happened. My brother needed a drummer, so that's what happened.
Yeah, Lloyd was sat there rubbing his hands, waiting to like catch him just as he was being born. Drummer, here we go.
And then in terms of songwriting, like, what was the songwriting process like in terms of, the songs that eventually ended up on that first album?
There were many that, so from that early period, the songs that I wrote, I did the bones. I always wrote the bones of most of them. I didn't like, the band wrote them really. It was all put together towards the end, but the bones of everything I wrote, there weren't many that didn't get on it. It was almost like the first. I mean, I did write a few songs before then.
Raise the Bismarck.
Raise the Bismarck, my friend. Fucking hell, I forgot about that. And there was a few when I was about 16, Godfrey and all that lot. But basically, it was the first songs. Do you know when you had like a light bulb moment where I thought, "Fuck, hang on, these songs are all right." They pretty much went on the album, and how it worked usually was I'd bring maybe an intro, but a verse and a chorus, maybe another verse, take it to the band, and then we'd just churn it out, would work it out. But occasionally, me and Tom would, not occasionally, more often than not, actually, we did quite a bit. We'd either glue two songs together, which by chance happened to be the similar chords, or we'd write together, and that was pretty much for that first album and the B-sides. It was
and like the first album. I mean, everything that went on there was pretty much all we had anyway, wasn't it? I mean, barring like obviously Godfrey.
I think it was.
And then whatever we had left was ended up B-sides or whatever.
Well, no, I think we ran out of tunes because I remember me and Marv sat in an hotel in Brighton, forced fucking writing songs for Nathan Leakes. And Nathan Leakes like, you need some B-sides, because the idea was, I mean, we're going a bit forward here now, but we was going to release the single over 3 formats, 2 vinyls and a CD. Each one had a different B-side on it. And we'd spunked all the songs anyway. So I remember being sat in Brighton and we wrote one that didn't do anything. We wrote about 3 songs in a room. And one of them, Marv, you'll remember, was dun, 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 a man on a mission. Remember that tune?
Yeah.
That session. What to do. That was yeah, we use that as a B-side. The other one was when we wrote a song called Dodgeball. We were sat watching the movie Dodgeball. And Lloyd was saying to me, we need a song, right? And he was like, give me some chords. And I had like bits and bobs. So I was like, oh, here's some chords, but it wasn't anything that would like really fit in what we do. Like now, if I was, when I work with these guys, I can go, right, here's a thing, and we all understand because we bridge the gaps. But I was like way over here with the songwriting from the scratch, like from the start. And Lloyd was like, right, I've got this thing, and it was always a bit patchy, so I'd always like help like bridge the gap with it. But the fact that we had on the first album, All Right in the Morning, like not a bad song, but it was like we had to put a kind of pod ska reggae thing on our album at that time, and then after that we was then supplying B-sides for our singles, which some of them were pretty good, pretty catchy, but then on the other hand we were a little bit not exhausted, but we just didn't, we'd like to write them, and they were never quite finished or whatever. So when Lloyd and Tom were like left to write a song, it all would come out as pretty much a whole. I'd always bridge the gap. Grant's always there to supply the dynamics, and that was the thing we did. But by the point when we were asked to supply songs, we're all at different parties. So
that was when that was happening, we was touring more than we was not touring, I guess, weren't we? That was
exactly,
years. I mean, there was one point where we were talking about B-sides. We was at the studio, so that's Sahara Studios in Fulham Broadway, and they locked us in the studio and said, "You're not coming out until you've recorded your B-sides."
And what came out of that session? There were two. One song I really like.
Was it Mr. Crackers for that?
Mr. Crackers came out with that. Del, where's your fucking White Lightning? And then the other one was it's one of mine. Can't remember it.
Yeah,
I
really
play
good
it now.
one.
But we were literally
All
alone.
Yeah.
But we were literally locked. Our management locked us in the studio and said, "You're not coming out until it's done," which was tragic, really.
And, and frankly, that's the end of it, because we're all still locked in those separate rooms.
Yeah, we are now. To answer your question, though, Harry, I guess originally it was me bringing something together, and we put it together with a band like Marv described, or me and Tom did that, and then we brought it to the band. The B-side situation was forced. Forced, but that's a bit further down. It was organic. We was mucking around. We was reading about the bands that we loved, the big hitters, the Strokes and Interpols and whatnot. And we was looking into what they were listening to. I remember like getting a television album because the Strokes told me to fucking buy a television album.
Yeah.
And this didn't sound like what I expected it to. And then you'd pick from that, and then you'd form your band.
Listen to the entire Velvet Underground back catalogue. Listen to.
Which we did.
Yeah, like
the Modern Lovers as well.
Yeah, Modern Lovers, Talking Heads, like everything 70s New York we went through. Not slavishly. I mean, you love that stuff, but we went directly like to pick up those influences because we're a bit more debt. So like loads of it was still like, oh yeah, but have you heard this New York Dolls thing that we've heard like 2 years ago, but we need to keep listening to? Like everyone's on a different page.
But we did that. But then we also we got that television T-shirt, and then we rubbed it in a mucky puddle that was the Sex Pistols. It wasn't like it was just.
Are you Nick Kent?
Yeah, very Matt Beaumont.
Good, go on, Nick Kent there, mate. You need to work for the NME. Do you know what?
Which one?
Yeah. One of your podcasts with Matt Beaumont should hook him up. You should teach him a few things.
All right, fucking hell. All right, let's talk about resin and fucking Aylworth Farms then, shall we? Carry on.
Yeah, we can do.
Would you black?
But we did, though. It wasn't just a New York scene, though, was it? There was so many other influences. The Buzzcocks,
Clash,
the Pistols, the Clash. They were major players in what we was listening to at the time.
It all fed into it.
Discovering them, not just listening to them, discovering them and thinking, fucking hell, this music actually exists. Because, I mean, my musical background and what we all listened to, it wasn't like that.
It was Oasis.
It was all things like that. But when Ever Fall in Love came on, or the Vibrators, Judy Says, and you go, fucking hell, you're allowed to actually write songs like this. They can actually sound like this.
Yeah.
Mine was a mixture of Celine Dion and Meatloaf.
I honestly used to love Celine Dion when I was a kid.
Well, you got two girl sisters who sang, mate.
Yeah.
You got it drilled into you there.
You've got two girl sisters.
Well, sorry, yeah.
That and Alanis
Hey,
Morissette.
that'll be the club foot, lads. two. Oh, God, I'm going to sound like a right cunt.
Yeah. Please, John,
Lloyd,
please finish that bottle off and then carry on.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of bands around that time would have had the same influences. But like, how did you lot make it work, or is that something you can't really put your finger on?
In
Yeah,
Hull,
you're right. Move along.
Yeah, move along. Because you know what? In Hull, we were probably we were the first band who were drawing on
Fair play,
on that
right.
wave. There was people like the Applewhites and things like that, these bands from Hull who was really influenced by the same stuff as us, but we was probably
a little bit later, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was. I'm not going to say anything about the Applewhites. The good lads.
Yeah, good lads.
Good lads, the good lads. But yeah, so I guess in Hull, but then across the country, I bet we were lads or lasses doing music of this ilk at that time. We was probably 2 years behind, really. So like everyone was doing that. If you're living in Leeds or you're living in Manchester, London, Glasgow, they was probably listening to the Parkinsons in 2000 when we was still listening to JJ 70 fucking 2. So
Fuck you, Lloyd.
yeah, no, I was listening to that earlier. I was listening to the Parkinsons, the JJ 72 not so long ago. It ain't that bad, but yeah,
JJ 72 Simpsons.
In Hull, we was probably the first to ride that wave, and then like Grant said, was outward looking with it, because when what can you do? Play the Adelphi? Can you play the Lamp? Can you play Turnpike and do that in a circle? We was outward looking with it, and then we got on it, literally.
There's the first break.
Yeah, there's your cut. There's your cut.
So I mean, I asked Tom this question, but like, was there a point where you thought, yeah, we're doing something right here? Like, we're clearly getting more recognition than other Hull bands, or like you say, was it maybe not like you were the only Hull band that were doing that type of music?
If someone would tell the story of, like, probably you, Tom, of us getting out of Hull based around you just turning up like at a Libs gig.
No. Yeah, no, I've got this now. I've got this. So we got
Yeah,
out.
go on,
We
you
got
take
out
it
of Hull.
away.
No, right. So we was playing up in Scarborough for No Code. It was Andy No Code, and they were running a club night at the Casbah or something like that. Yeah. We're playing with this band up in Scarborough. It's the first time we've ever been out of town. I mean, for a few of us, it's the first time we've been out of town without our fucking parents. And you're up in Scarborough. We've got a B&B that we can't afford to pay for, and we're playing with this band called the IVs, which at that point, that naive, I didn't even know what that meant.
It means intravenous, which is somewhat suggestive.
Well, exactly. Had I known that, I think my conversation with the person who was singing for the band, which actually turned out to be the infamous Scarborough Steve, who was an original member of the Libertines, and I think he was pretty much into you, wasn't he, Tom? Because at that point he was knocking around like he was a rock and roll star. Yeah. So we just ended up talking to him, and he said he knew. Well, we got talking about Libertines, didn't we? He was like, straight away.
How into you do you think he was? Into me, do you think he was?
Well, he loved you the fact that he was a front man, and he wanted everybody to be a front man, and like him.
And I'd say it was a strong 8 needles out of 10, Tom.
Though, do you know what?
Well done, Marv. Hypodermic.
Go on, Grant's going for it. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dobby.
No, but I've just realised as well, which he got random. He looks a lot like Mitch Hedberg, which is a bit weird. But I'll just leave that one there. Look him up, and then Anyway,
all right.
So we ended up big. What did he do? He said he knew Pete, and then he said he'd ring Pete to get us a gig, and then he rang Pete, and he got us a gig. And it turns out the gig was in a squat in King's Cross, and it was the most peculiar thing I've ever done. Anyway,
Pete actually ended up ringing my mum's house. Remember, I remember being in bed. I don't know if I spoke about this on the first episode, but yeah, he ended up ringing my house, and I didn't even believe it was him. I was like, I don't even know. I don't have any mates called Pete, so.
Does he even talk like that? I don't even know what he talks like.
Yeah, fuck off, Frank Spencer. Stop calling my house.
And then so then we all like sort of we got the gig, and we all like, did we train it down there? Literally, guitars in hand and train. Didn't know where it was going.
Didn't we go on in the Nova?
Yeah, right.
Did we go in the Vauxhall Nova?
There's the Gunter Grove Nova gig, isn't there?
We trained the first one, definitely. And we played this gig in, if you walk out of King's Cross and you do an immediate left, there's a lighthouse that sticks out. It's an old building. I think it's been
there. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, is it not? I thought it was.
No, it's gone.
And it was just like this big squat of like, it was like one of them was like an old mucky book shop, wasn't it? That we broke into. And it was just like it was just like this big squat of about probably 50 people, and they had a hall in it, and we played this gig, and it was insane. We played Horror Show.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, but that was. I mean, I don't even remember what the question was, but it's almost like our gigs were.
How did you get out of town?
Our gigs were quite good, you know. And then all of a sudden we're knocking around with a load of smackheads and Portuguese punks.
Portuguese punks, wasn't it? Yeah, like they were sound as fuck there.
Selfish Cunt was playing. Do you remember? And he was walking around the room with spray paint, writing Great Britain is shit on the wall. I was like, this is brilliant. Where the fuck are we? And then the coppers raided it, and we ended up going through this like warren of stairs to try and get away from the coppers. Then we're on the roof. It was like bizarre. So in actual fact, we thought we was going to go play like, I don't know,
Brixton Academy.
No, not quite.
We thought we was going,
but we
thought a venue.
Yeah, and it wasn't a venue. But it almost put like, I don't know.
As far as learning curves go, that's a steep one, and it was a really good lesson to learn.
It put an extra 1.5 foot of hairs onto Grant's chest, and there was already significant hairs there.
Oh, yeah. And
our first London gig was in a squat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that the same one where you said it got raided, Tom, or something?
Yeah, it did, and it got raided in the end.
Do you know? Ironically, all of them got raided.
Yeah,
the Gunter Grove one, which I know Tom mentioned in the last podcast, that got raided, and Doherty accused Grant of throwing a brick through his window. They weren't really gigs, were they? They were just experiences. It was great fun. I can't remember our first proper gig in London where you've gone. Oh,
wasn't it like
paying attention to our music?
Maybe the Ribbon Factory.
Yeah, it's probably Ribbon Factory or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which was almost the same as those other things, except it was a legitimate nightclub.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, true.
It was like in Rhythm Factory when we first all bombed, because by the time we'd been down a couple of times to London after these absolutely legendary but like kind of non-gig things, and we were going down again to play at the Rhythm Factory, so people were coming with us by that point. So we're taking our friends down to London to experience this thing that we're just finding out, which became the Rhythm Factory. And it was like, you know, like there might be 20 bands on in a night, loads of notorious bands, loads of notorious motherfuckers. The gigs would go until 4 a.m. You don't know what slot you got. You don't care because you're absolutely flying all night anyway. So whatever time it is, there's going to be people there. Whatever you're doing, you're going to play your gig. You're going to give everything out. But the funniest part of that was like everyone's allowed backstage, and I remember we took our friend Danny Clark, and Danny Clark got thrown out of the venue for smoking a joint backstage because you're not allowed to smoke weed in that house, but everyone else was smoking crack.
Not me, man. I want man.
No.
Well, no, I'm not saying we were, but what I'm saying is, if you sat next to someone, they're on a pipe. But if you put weed in that pipe, oh my word, you're out the door. But
did you get chucked out and go to a strip club and then come back later on and let him back in?
I had to. I shimmied him some money and he lost my weed.
Oh, what a bastard!
My pipe just had back in.
To be fair, when like Marv's saying, when we took people down there, it was pretty much like, you won't believe this. Come down and have a look. You won't believe what happens in that there London.
And then, and because the thing is, like, we only knew what had gone on in our 2 experiences at these like kind of squat like arrangements, and the thing that panned out was, you know, you can't brief someone if you go into the unknown, which we did, but we took a shitload of people with us anyway, which actually meant that we ended up like laid, like kind of like a fine lattice, three people up, all laid over each other, sleeping on Dominic Masters' floor. All sprinkled with like resin ash. And everyone was like, oh, is this what goes on? We was like, well, we don't know. We've only just found out.
well, no, that's possibly the only time we actually had somewhere to go to. But he's not lying there. You'd walk into a room and you could not see the carpet for people laid on the floor asleep. Like there's 20 people asleep on the floor in a room. You have to sort of find your own space and sleep in a corner.
I don't want to make it real political around, but the quality of social housing in London for the money you pay. But pound for pound, Dominic Masters got more indie kids into a house than I've ever seen. I mean, literally. And like there'd be like a party ending and a party starting. And then like...
In which room? Yeah.
Yeah, there was that, but there was always one room with only one person in it, and it was Johan hiding from the party. Bless her. But he was like, Dominic was like, she's all right. She's all right. Oh, anyway.
Grimsby Street, just off Brick Lane. Walking down Brick Lane at like after o'clock in the morning and eating salt beef bagels.
Let's all go get a bagel. Oh, it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
It's the only thing that we've had to eat in about 3 days.
But do you know what? Like going back to what you're saying, Harry. I guess what we're trying to say is when we first started doing London gigs, and when Marv was saying there was 20 bands on that stage, there was like the Rocks on there. Do you know what I mean? They were brilliant. You should try and get the Rocks on. They were their first album was unbelievable.
I did speak to him actually.
The Unstrung on there.
The Unstrung, the Mad
They were brilliant. And
Special Needs.
Yeah, there was brilliant bands. Special Needs, one of the greatest rock and roll bands that album should have come out mainstream. But I guess the point I'm making is we was on the recognition. We realised we was getting recognition when we was playing alongside our peers in London from all over the country. So you're no longer first on the bill at the Adelphi supporting some random band you never heard of. You're playing with people who are like-minded, who are probably a bit more advanced with it than you. Like I said, they've probably been doing it a few years, a little bit older than us, some of them. But that was it. You're thinking, hang on. This is brilliant. And you're hearing, I remember when the Rocks came on stage, it was Christmas. And is he called James? It's James, isn't it?
James.
He came on, he said, they tried to, I won't do an accent because I can't even remember where the country is from. And he goes, they tried to get Karen O to play, but they couldn't get her. So I've come as Karen O. And it's Christmas. And he goes, ho, ho, fucking ho. And then started this blistering set. And you're like, this is amazing.
They were fucking good.
I think he said exactly the opposite. They tried to get James Rocks, but they got Karen O. And he walked on. He walked on dressed as Karen O.
But the framework of those gigs was like if you were lucky enough to get a gig at the Adelphi, like you'd go right. You're on at 7:30, and then there's so and so, and then there's that hierarchy. There was the same hierarchy in London when you turn up, but it might be 20 bands between lunchtime and like 12, or it might start at 7 o'clock and finish at 4 in the morning. But you're just always slotted in there. And
you'd never get a whole gig where you played at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Because all the bands were so new, people would turn up just for that band's slot. Probably hang around a bit, but some people would hang around all night and some people would just turn up for that band slot. And it was like a real measure of who was like popular at the time, who was doing something, who was interesting. If a shitload of people turned up for a band, you'd walk out to watch them. And when we walked out at 2 in the morning in Rhythm Factory, loads of people just came out of nowhere. So we knew we had something going on when we were there.
Yeah. And from that point onwards, did you think London was a place you had to be, kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, I think at that point, the message boards were really taking off. So the libertines.org was like your sort of pre-MySpace, Facebook probably wasn't even a glimmer in anybody's eye at that point. We was all working off these message boards, which were just text message boards. It was a subject and then a thread afterwards. And that's how the community sort of kept in touch with each other and how gigs were formed and you know that from that point that's what took us around the country, because it'd be the sort of like-minded people would be on these message boards and be like, right, come and play in Shrewsbury, come and play in bloody hell, where else? And it was at literal Telford, Shrewsbury, around that way, Birmingham, the Iron Bridge. But it was these people that was like I say, like-minded people who would say, we've all got call, but we'll put a gig on. Will you come and play?
You've got a good point there, Dobbo, because like when Harry said is it London Central, that way you wanted to be? Yeah, it did. But then when you got through that message board, there was us and the Unstrung went on. This is when I guess we just signed to Pop Turns for a single deal. It was our first proper tour that was advertising the NME and all that lot. It was around the country, and you could see, like I was talking about earlier on with Hull, we was a little bit behind the big cities like the Sheffields and the Manchesters and stuff like that. But like the Shrewsburys and the small provincial towns, they were getting their little dose of the new rock revolution, all these bands. And we went on these tours through these message boards, and that was the greatest tour I ever been on. And I've been on.
Was that the camping tour?
The camping tour. One morning we woke up, we had no food, and for some reason I'd taken all the spices from the noodles. We had noodles to eat on tour, and I'd taken all the spice out the noodles to have like some sort of experimental cup of soup. So we had to eat just warm noodles with no flavour. It was bog standard. And I remember Tom getting in that Nova, Josh's Nova, God bless his Nova, chasing sheep in the field in a cart. And I remember waking up in a tent, and we're all, it's like you finally get to sleep at about 5 o'clock after doing this gig in this mad fucking pub somewhere. And then you go to the party, and then you get chucked out of the party, and you go back to your campsite. We finally get our heads down, and like a fucking sheep's head came in the tent. Like, oh God, and you're freaking out, like, oh, what are we doing? And our manager at the time, God bless Jodoff, he organised it all. He was adamant every night he must go to sleep at 11 to 12 o'clock, and he never got any sleep, bless him.
But right, no, you're on about getting thrown out the party. That wasn't the case. The case was we'd put right. So basically, what we'd do is with this camping tour, you turn up. We'd find a campsite, or sometimes we'd just find a field, get the farmer to say we can stay in the field, and then you'd go to the gig. And on through the message board, you'd say bring your tent, and literally we'd set up 4 tents, go do a gig, come back. Wake up in the morning, there would be 20 tents set up, because literally people just bring the tent, and the party would just like sort of, our 4 tents would evolve into 20 odd tents.
I remember having a real good night. I had a real good night with Bobby Cooper and who was the lead singer of the Unstrung? Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, wasn't it? And
yeah.
We sat there, was when you're that ringed, you're that awake, shall we say, playing that.
You've already said ringed, mate.
Yeah, playing that after hours song by the Velvet Underground all night, and then you'd go, let's go to bed, and then you'd go to bed, and then the sheep would get any sent. But we had a record deal, a single deal, but our first tour was intense. Less than 9 months, a year later, we was in what we used to call Beyonce's bus and all that, weren't we?
Intense.
It's a very steep curve, both ways, though.
And then it went straight back down, motherfucker.
You've been on the big one at Blackpool, yeah?
Anyway, Harry, what do you want us to say?
So that single deal, like Tom's told us about, Alan McGee organising, like signing for a single. Like, how does that turn into the album deal?
Do you know what? There's a little story I'm going to tell you about that. I remember so the single came out, we recorded it 21. Alan McGee wanted to put out the demo version, which it wasn't that good. It was a demo. In actual fact, we weren't playing that well on it. And we said, no, we'll re-record it. Went to Fairview, which studio, good studio, went and did that. And we put it out with hardly any press. It was just really Pop-Tones. I guess Pop-Tones didn't need to, on them first bands, they didn't need a lot of press because McGee ran it. So they got a bit of press for free, I guess, just because McGee had picked them. But it had no budget. It went out and it went to 47 based on the message boards and the buzz that was going around with some of these bands in the NME at the time. I mean, this is it's the British take on the new rock revolution. And I remember we'd had a party. You got the chart number on a Sunday, and we had a party at the Chris Marseille's house, who was an old musician at the time in a band called the Morphines. Big party. And I woke up in the morning. My mum rang me, and she went, "How do you do, son? How do you do?" And I went, came in at 47, man. She went, oh, never mind. But I guess the point I'm making is, I think it came in at 47 with nothing, and so Mercury Records, Universal Mercury Records, was linked to Pop Tones as a feeder label. So the Mercury have just gone, well, how's that happened? We want to listen to more of their music. So based on internet hype, a little bit of a buzz going on, getting in there at 47, the big uns said, oh, well, we're interested. I think that's, I don't know if I'm wrong, lads, but I think that's why.
I think the fact that when we released it, it was, as Lloyd said, as well known as it might have been to people who were going to buy it anywhere, and how it got cottoned on through radio play and promotion and stuff like that, which is like the key to the city, like, which is McGee. We signed 1,000 singles, didn't we?
Jodie's got to sign a few of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, all right. So most of us signed most of the singles, like on a vinyl. So we got 1,000 sales out of that because people who knew us wanted that product. Like, it was going to be the next big thing, however that pan out. But also, it was actually quite a limited run, limited.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Limited play. It was a bit of a niche thing, and it wasn't quite obvious as our first release and how things would go with having our album produced by Owen Morris and our sound generally and stuff. It was going from that basic band, that garage band, into something where we was actually capturing and developing our music substantially. But again, it was not ultimately available everywhere. It was kind of a different time. I think the fact that we did this 1,000 vinyl that was signed, it's real nice. It's like getting a Christmas card off the band. I don't get many Christmas cards, so like people like to hold the product. So I think we got 1,000 sales literally by signing 1,000 vinyl. Yeah, no one had a record player, but it bumped that notice and the sound. That was like the kind of major thing to break us into people who might buy music, and that's what gives us a step forward.
Then 1,000 will have all sold, but then if I remember rightly, Popsons probably paid, they did anyway. They paid for an advert in the NME. That helped. We might have been played by Lamac. We certainly played on Def Disco Radio, what McGee's show, but I think ultimately it was that organic network on online stuff that got it. But to answer your question, Harry, the Mercury went, well, if they've done that or nothing, what can they do with a bit more support? Which probably was nothing in the end. But anyway.
So what is that feeling like when you do get the album deal? Is it like a pinch yourself moment, or is it like kind of what you dreamed of, or what?
Can you all remember when it happened?
I remember getting told outside of Tom's house. That's when we got told.
Outside of Tom's house, we was about to drive to some gig somewhere.
I'll tell you where I was driving.
You tell me where it was.
Was in outside of his house.
Yeah.
John told us, our manager at the time, and then we drove to fucking Edinburgh, and it all went mental.
Yes, that is the day. That is the most. No. That's not the record deal day.
No.
That's the money day.
That's the money day.
Like, you're on about the money day.
The record deal day. Jodoff couldn't keep himself. He couldn't keep quiet about it. We was doing a gig in probably like London, and literally as we got in the van from Tom, so we'd all like. I think Tom was always the last person to be picked up.
Drag him out from under that bed.
We was playing. We was in the back of the van, and then Jodoff couldn't keep his mouth shut. He's like, right, this has happened, and then we had to sit in a van, like the band in a van.
I remember.
We were literally 2 foot apart, feet in each other's faces, and all that. Just found out we'd got at that point was a 6-album deal, major deal. Why you couldn't have waited until we were
getting John off.
John off. I love John off. I still get John off. I love him.
Legend.
But I don't remember. I remember the day we got the money.
We got the money. All right.
Right. So can we do? Right. Can we do the day we got the money?
The day we got the money, we was leaving Newcastle. We played Newcastle. I think we played an absolutely amazing gig. Was it the Northumberland Academy, or it was the one that was on the upstairs, and it was an insane gig.
Clooney, was it Clooney?
Was it one of the Clooney gigs?
Can't remember.
But the day after, it was in the morning, wasn't it? We were literally driving to Edinburgh. To play with Eastern Lane, because that was the tour that we were supporting.
Yeah. That
was the rough trade band that was going to be the New Strokes that never became anything.
Was it called Bongo Club? Where was going
something like that?
Yeah, it was the Bongo Club.
So we was off to support Eastern Lane, a really good band, but they're also a rough trade band who had signed for fuck all, and we marched in there, just having signed the 6-album deal and given quite a good advance, and decided that we was going to award ourselves.
Hey, let's be honest. More money than we've ever fucking
ever had.
When you break it down, lads, it was pretty much fuck all, because we've all had jobs.
That day,
but on the day when it was like, we've got the money, right? What do we do? Pull the van off the well, not the motorway, like the A road or whatever, so we could pull over and stock it up with booze, because we knew that we didn't have to rely on our PDs for fucking weeks.
I do remember walking around Newcastle city centre, going into Foot Locker and getting a pair of white Chuck Taylor Converse, bright white. Never bought bright white trainers in my life. Would have think I'm Puff Daddy.
You do now, dickhead. After management, lawyers, record label, you have approximately $3,000 to spend, mate, for the next 2 years. Enjoy yourself.
Let's do it all in tonight. Tonight.
But we did enjoy ourselves, and then from that day, so
we got arrested that night.
Moving story on though, right? So, right, that night we went and played what was immediate, like, because Edinburgh is not the die-hard capital of indie music by any means. We went to.
Someone said. Anyway, sorry.
Well, some might want to go there for a little holiday in the future, Lloyd. But really, I mean, if you're going to go see indie bands, you go to Glasgow.
You got Glasgow.
Edinburgh is a bit. We played a good gig, but it wasn't like a sellout or anything at this Bongo Club. We'd walked up, what's it called, like Arthur's Seat during the day, like the big hill in Edinburgh.
Oh, of course,
I definitely didn't walk up that. I think I got about 20 foot up it and went, fuck.
I walked up there in my taped up shoes, went up there. Right, so the day was, we're in a van, found out we've got half of an advance in our bank account, make the van pull over, buy a shitload of booze, get back in the van, go play a gig. It was a good gig, but it wasn't like, you've set the world on fire. Then did we not go to a strip club?
We got to a strip club, didn't we?
Yeah.
No. Let's be specific where we went to. We went to the three strip clubs in Edinburgh called the Pubic Triangle.
Yeah, that was it.
So we went to the Pubic Triangle. We're all allowed a small cash advance, so that we're allowed like a dance or whatever. My personal experience of that was, you guys were all running around like spraying champagne and that. I didn't get a dance all night because it wasn't really my thing. And then you all kind of grabbed me and was like, Marv, get in there with this girl. And I sat down, absolutely stunning girl, like 19 years old, like rubbing herself on me, this and that. Right?
Edit this out. Right. This is wrong.
Right. I was fine with that, but I was sat there like, it was like there was like curtains on each like kind of booth, but they were all open, so I could see like loads of like fat Scottish businessmen all getting dances, this and the other. I was in there for about half an hour. When I walked out with the girl who was doing my lap dance, I'd convinced her to go to college. She came and sat down with me to have a bottle of champagne. And we won't talk about getting off our heads, which we did, but then we all went back to the hotel room, and it was our most successful day. Like, not gig-wise, but like financially as a band, it was a day when we knew if someone says, I'm going to pay you, fair enough. When you do get paid, you're like, fuck, right, we got paid today. What a great day. And the end of the night ended up with us all in a room. I can't quite remember why we were arguing, but Lloyd decided that he wanted to kill me. Now, if Lloyd does want to kill me, he could. But his version of killing me was he wouldn't punch me, which was also fair. I appreciate all this, Lloyd, by the way. But Lloyd was like, right, I hate you, mate. And Lloyd was bouncing my head off the bed, right? And we're all, I don't know if all of us were in the same room, but I think Tom might have been in a different room, might have been in a room with like Lloyd and Grant. Grant's going, well, this is a fight with fannies, so I'm not getting involved. Lloyd's bouncing me off the bed.
I was in a different room at this point.
Yeah, well, coppers turned up at mine and Lloyd's room, knocking on the door. And I opened the door and I was like, hello. And like, you've got a noise complaint. We're going to arrest you if you carry on. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, thank you, pigs. Right, go fuck yourself. And they're like, right. They didn't say that very well, but I closed the door. Or I thought I closed the door. And I went in and I turned around to Lloyd like a haggard, like beaten housewife. And I was like, well, Lloyd, aren't you pleased with yourself? You want to fill me in, and now the police are here, and now they're going to arrest us if you carry on. And you was like, Marv, fuck you. Then you carried on bouncing me off the bed. He won't bounce. He was sat on my back doing it though, like riding like a pony. The police came marching in en masse, and were like, "You're under arrest." We're like, "Oh, you're under arrest." And Lloyd was like, "Right, okay, right, we're all gonna go." Pick me and Lloyd up. Tom came out, going, "What the fuck's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, we're arresting you."
I think I was in the same room as you.
You said
I was in the room.
yeah. So you was like trying to calm the coppers down or whatever. Tom said, "If you're taking them, you're taking me." And they were like, "Oh no, we're not. We won't take you." And you was like, "No, you will. You will take me. You fucking pig cunt." You just said whatever you needed to say to get arrested, which you did. The guy who had me in handcuffs marched me to the top of the stairs. Like we were all spaced out.
Mate, I was stood behind you at this point. This is
right.
Mad.
So this like green copper was marching me up to the top of the stairs. And I was like, "Look, mate, we would have been quiet. We're just having like a domestic. Like you could just like let us off." And he was like, "No, I'm not letting you off, mate." And I was like, "Well, I'm not letting you off." And he had me in handcuffs behind my back. So I chucked myself down 2 flights of stairs. Hit my head on the bottom step, like burst out, like bleeding. And then when the next copper came bringing Tom through, because Tom was the last one who just came out by dedication to the cause, Tom was led to the top of the stairs. I was laid at the bottom going, "It's just thrown me down the stairs. It's thrown me down the stairs." This copper's shitting his pants. They put us all in the back of the van. No worries. Me and Tom were sat in the back of the van. Both with handcuffs behind our backs, and Tom had his bag on, and then he's like, "Right, well, I guess we're being arrested." Like, yeah, we're both being arrested, fair enough. And then Tommy, being wiry, just put the handcuffs round the back, down his back, around his legs, went in his bag, pulled out 20 Lambert and a bottle of Jack Daniels. And there is absolutely zero exaggeration in this.
Do you know,
when the coppers pulled up and opened the door, me and Thomas sat there, both with the fag on, sharing a bottle of Jack Daniels.
I was there. I got arrested as well.
No, was you in the van though? Was you in our van?
I might not have been in your van.
Well, no, because you two was both having a domestic.
Yeah, they probably separated me and you.
Yeah, that's true, Lloyd. Yeah.
So
It's the most cliche day you could possibly have, but it's a mad thing because people go, "Oh, did the money affect you? How was the rock and roll lifestyle on the day?" Literally within 12 hours of money dropping into our account.
We've been through every single cliche possible.
It was like watching, I don't know, like Straight Outta Compton on Fast Forward. Like, I'm surprised one of us didn't die of AIDS by that point, just because it would have been like a token gesture for how music and bands can go downhill. But we had strippers, we had something else. We had a gig. We got arrested. I
had a pair of white trainers.
White trainers.
I do maintain this, right? Do you know when you talk about him raving your head on the bed like that? All I can ever see is, do you know the bit in Ace Ventura 2 where he's getting beaten up in the village and he's getting his head between the two drums?
I know, it was so like Lloyd was going at me because he wanted to be violent and hurt me, but we was just on a bed and he was like, well, I'm not really going to hurt you. I was just literally bouncing my head off the bed, like real. I was just like, I was going, is that, are you happy now? Is it all right? Are you okay?
Hey, Harry, that wasn't the only time I did similar stuff. We've had a couple of scraps, me and Marv.
Get on to the brawl, shall we?
We've all had a couple of scraps. We all have different.
We aren't going to do the scraps, though, because it's...
Don't go scraps. Comedy scraps only tonight.
Yeah,
right.
comedy scraps. But pretty much
Marv's
was always comedy scraps. Do you remember like, when we broke... Did I break the guitar on you, or did you break the guitar on me?
I broke the guitar. Baggett's guitar. Yeah.
Baggett's guitar in Reading.
In Reading, it was. The home of Ali Valium.
And that's when you tried to jump
Ali
on.
Valium is the only person who's truly become successful out of that whole scene.
Ali Tan, as his actual name is. Yeah.
So, right. So that gets us to just after our first single.
Yeah.
Right then.
Actually, right.
And
to be fair, Harry, our career was over faster than this interview was like panned it out.
I wanted to talk to you about like the composition of the band because nobody talks about it much on the podcast. But like from someone that was in a shit band from Hull, like that didn't go anywhere.
He was in a good band. I like your band.
Oh, cheers, mate.
I relate, mate.
Obviously we didn't have the songs, but do you think there's something that you can't put your finger on? I mean, when I looked at you, like, all seemed like you're very committed to the band and you're all like on the same page. Do you think that's quite important when you're trying to achieve success?
Because we had nowhere else to go.
It was like a home for lost children. We all came together. And do you know what? I think when you're younger, forming bands when you're younger, it's kind of like I played rugby. So did my brother. The other lads played football, and Josh played rugby as well. It's akin to that, being in a team. So we're like the Five Musketeers.
Well, there was very much a gang mentality, and we all knocked about together. I mean, for a while, the music was very much second, wasn't it? I mean, when we got into the room, when we got in the room, it was more about being a gang, or it was more. I mean, when we first used to rehearse, it was let's get rehearsal done, and we're going to get in here quicker than we can ever,
Talk about being in the band.
What? Do you know what I mean? But we were friends. We were a gang. We were all together.
Yeah.
Whatever we did was secondary. It was being together.
The thing that was touched on earlier, as the characters that we are, all quite separate. Like only Grant and Lloyd. Well, Grant and Lloyd obviously grew up together. Tom and Josh grew up together, and like the long and the short of the band was based around a lot of those relationships that people bring. I was like kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah, you was.
But what you've got is a mix of stuff that you just turn up with. And when you are mates and when you do want to hear it, you all just pour that in. And frankly, with what I know about all of the guys who I've been in the band with, the things that they brought were up to my standard. Because if there's loads of musicians who we would never have in our band, quite a few people might have a chance to get in our band, but for us, there is a certain thing that it takes to be able to relate to someone, to be bothered to make music.
Yeah.
Us five getting bands together.
I kind of mentioned
that's the thing that you can exploit and enjoy.
Yeah. I kind of mentioned this the other day. It was just like we were so comfortable with each other as well, weren't we? Like even trying to write with other people now is all right, but like if we got together tomorrow and fucking played like we did the other week when we just even jamming together, it's like it's just it's comfortable. It's like easy to do as well.
It's a look. It's a look, isn't it? It's not even a language. It's a look. It's a way that you hold yourself, a nod, but I still think that goes back to the gang mentality thing. You become we were brothers. Yeah. We started very young, and you become a family. And before you know it, that's why you end up scrapping. So
well, that's why you end up being all right when you do scrap. I think going back to what I say, when you're young, and this is you got to remember at the time we was listening to the Ramones, the Clash, them unifying sort of like that the last gang in town sort of
The
stuff.
gang bands.
And we all, if we're honest, we probably all lost a girlfriend because of it, or loads of mates. We sacked everything off and invested everything into this, and it wasn't for financial gain. This is before Club Bongo in Edinburgh. We invested time in each other. It was great, and I guess that's where, when I was going back to the question earlier on around how you wrote music and stuff, that's why it came easy, because you knew you'd all. I mean, I'm not saying we sacrificed stuff that's like life changing or threatening, but we sacked off loads of things to be us. And
you don't trust many people. You need to have an immediate respect for someone to be able to do this type of thing. Like, well, I do. Like, my first impressions count. So Lloyd, Grant, and Tom. Every time meeting each one of those guys, I was like, holy fuck! Like, they know a lot of stuff I don't, and they're tight as fuck musicians. Brilliant thing. When I met Josh, to be fair, Josh is a shit-hot guitarist over time, but me and Josh had to kind of earn each other's respect to be able to work together, which we did, and that stood. But we've had other people kind of come and go around our bands, like different musical experiments we've tried. I've tried to work with people with my piano works recently. Some people can get along with it straight away, other people can't. You either click or you don't. And we clicked all just on the same page, and we can always go back to that page.
Yeah,
to try it again.
And we had.
We proved it. We proved it a month and a half ago when we all got in the same room. And I don't know if you know, Harry, but we was all in town together. We opened up the rehearsal studio, and we got the gear out and we played. And
then we got the musical equipment out.
Come on.
and
we got the guitars and keyboards out.
And then we got the gear out. Then we got the musical equipment out, and it was a wonderful night.
You've just spoiled that, because that's never going to work now, is it?
No,
but what, right, but yeah, right, all right. But for instance, right, that night of us lot being in a room when
Lynn knows what we got up to anyway.
When when Lloyd had disappeared for a bit, Rosa was there. Rosa stepped in on bass to play loads of Stroke songs. So it was Dark Horse from Rosa. It was part of our musical elite, from years ago. And he literally stepped in and was like, I know all the Stroke songs. And it was good to have Rosa playing. But if it was just
it wasn't the same though, was it?
Yeah,
it wasn't the same. But no, I'm not saying it was the same. I'm saying we'll let him.
Yeah, we'll let him.
Yeah. There was always our mates around the band, proper old ones, Jodie's, the Liam Berries, the Rosas, and that was just the whole lot. Yourself, Harry, do you know what I mean? But yeah, going back to what you were saying, I think that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah,
Lloyd's roundup of every question.
Well, I'm trying to help Harry out here.
Yes, appreciate it, mate. Yeah.
Well, Harry, you've got the words in your mouth. Just shut up, answer the question.
Also,
so
Harry, we look forward to you releasing this podcast in a month when you finish the editing of it.
We all know there's no film in this camera.
It's 30 seconds long.
And then moving on to, how old were you when you got the album deal in?
I'd have been 22.
Right.
So I'd have been 20.
Okay. Nah, was it 20?
Yeah.
What 2003? Yeah, no, I would have been 19. I was
19, yeah, I was going to say.
So it might have been younger.
18, 19, me and you, Grant.
Yeah. You and Hugh Grant? Hey!
Fuck's sake. Fucking hell, mate.
Just on a side note, whilst Lloyd's gone, well, wherever he's got, probably just to ask permission if he's loaded another 30 minutes.
He's going to put 50p in the meter.
So at that point, when you get the album deal, you've already got the songs, that are going to go on it?
No, we didn't. No, not even close. We had to. Owen Morris came into Hull to do pre-production with us, and we had to pretty much rewrite everything that we'd ever fucking wrote.
That was another story as well, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we went to the chocolate factory, wasn't it?
Yeah, we booked out a studio on Bankside, but we booked it out for like a week. was it a week, probably even 2 weeks, and we just literally Owen Morris came down and we just literally turned it into a fucking rave.
Which he really enjoyed.
Which he really enjoyed until he stopped enjoying
it. It didn't really help. It did help the cause with the songwriting and the kind of like rounding of the songs, because as Lloyd had said earlier, like when he'd come in with an idea, the same with Tom, we'd have bits and then it's there for the band to finish off. Like frankly, because by this point we're enjoying the ride, we're not and we're on tour and stuff like that, we don't have the time to sit and actually write the songs out. So to get
all the experience, mate.
Yeah, like all the experience. Me and Josh trying to figure out guitar lines. Grant's pretty accomplished by this point. Lloyd's playing bass and we're finishing his songs off, so he's fucking sat on his ass anyway.
Yep.
And Tom's always naturally gifted, so but then we meet Owen Morris, who you think's going to come in like a school teacher, and he's like, and he kind of is, but he's like a school teacher who's like pinned up on like real high end crack. So he comes in and we'd be like, right then, boys, you're going to need to write a chorus for this. And we're like, well, how do we do that? And he would literally take my guitar off me, play 3 chords, and then go, you're going to write a chorus off that. And we would. And that was the pre-production. But during that pre-production, and this will carry over to the album part in about a week.
27 years,
yeah. But when Owen came to Hull to do the pre-production, we got in a room with him, found out he was a complete weirdo. Loads of us didn't turn up for loads of sessions. I remember playing Sorry when you weren't there, Grant. And I was doing I was stood playing.
I was always
No, you was not there, because I was playing Sorry and playing the bass drum with my foot. So I was like, sorry, like obviously terrible, but trying to like write little scraps here and there. And during that time, because also it was still the free ride, that's when Jody and Baz went to a brand new studio building and infiltrated their very intricate wall system. Like, because walls are usually meant to divide up rooms. They fucking burrowed through this brand new studio. We got thrown out quite quickly for that. Another thing on these are just my recollections of the pre-production. My second one is we took Owen Morris to Yo-Yo, Andy and Priya's night.
I know what happened here.
What's it called? Well, what on Newland? What's the
Piper
club called? Piper, yeah. So we took Owen Morris to Piper. Right.
What's the other club down Newland Ave?
Well, no, the reason why I couldn't remember was because I spent a lot of money on therapy to forget this stuff. So we took Owen Morris to Piper, which was great. And I remember walking in with Owen Morris, me wearing my tiny little leather jacket, like all the bullshit, full of bravado. I got searched at the door. Obviously, the things that they're trying to find, they're not going to find. But they took my jacket off me, and I pulled like 500 quid cash out of one pocket. Like, no, I didn't know what I had on me. Pulled 500 quid cash out, slapped that on the side. Loads of tour passes, like loads of stuff, and it was all just going, you can't let this guy in. But the things they were looking for, they could not find. And then Owen Morris just stood right behind me going, fucking hell, Marv, tell these cunts to let you in. So me and Owen walk in. Owen's having a very nice time behind the DJ decks with Andy and Priya, as he would. And then we lose Owen. And literally this is the first few days that we've hung out with the guy. And then the club kind of, you can see all the security stuff going into some type of schism, and everything's kicking off. And I run out the door to find out that Owen Morris had decided that he was going to walk not into the toilets, because that's not good enough for him. He was told that he could not do what he wanted to do behind the DJ decks. So he'd walk straight into the manager's office.
And guess what? Silly Cunt was with him. Me. And when the bouncers marched in the room, I looked at Owen and I went, I thought that you'd organised this. And he was like, oh, have a fuck, Lloyd. Both got dragged out. It's like, what? Who has the audacity to just somehow walk up that? It was the office.
And maybe a guy who just produced 40 gazillion albums.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realise that he was tied in with that, Lloyd.
I was there. I was with him. I remember looking at him going...
Allegedly.
No. I was with him, and I thought... I think my words were something to the effect of, I thought you'd paid him off to let us do this, or something like that. And he went, no. And I was like, fuck. And dragged straight out. Anyway.
Should we talk about music?
Yeah, so you didn't have the songs ready at that time for the album?
No, we didn't.
No,
apparently not.
So what we had was a blueprint for an album. And then, I mean, this is pretty much what's happens. I mean, there's probably a lot more accomplished bands who know exactly what they want to do. But from our experience, and I think from other people I spoke to, you go do this thing called pre-production where whoever you're going to work with, the producer, he comes into the room, you play the songs to him or her, and you say, and he either says yes, no, right, do you think you can do this? Do you think you can do that? I think that might need that, that might need that. What if you do this, do that? And then you sort of like bash it out, because what happens is the studio costs that much money that you don't, I mean, nobody's the Beatles anymore. You're not in the studio for 3 years doing, let's test this, let's do that. You walk in, you know exactly what you need to do. You record, and then you get out, because it's obviously time is money. It's a really poor way to do it. It really works. It really works. But then you're working with somebody who's produced and been a part of so many records and wrote so many parts for other sort of things. It's another ear on your sort of creation that you can have. I mean, you can take it on board or not. Most of the time you do, because they talk sense.
Yeah, the only one we didn't have quite finished when we went in to do the album was £52, and that point what Marv said where he went, it needs a chorus. He literally set me out of a room, and I remember going out of a room in the studio where we was recording the album, and there was a fucking grand piano, and I was like, all right, and I wrote the chorus to £52 on a grand piano, went back in and went, I've done it, and then we cracked on. Everything else was finessed. It was sorted out through that process, and it was 2 weeks. And you're right, we did turn it into a bit of a rave, but we took it seriously.
We hashed out an album there.
Yeah.
Also, like we were so green that because the things that we were offering, we were going to this guy, like as Lloyd says, like multi-million selling guy. Like Owen knows the tune, like Alan does. They know a lot of brilliant stuff. They also know a lot of shit, like, because that's the risk you take, like with art. But Owen was literally like, do you not know that there's not a chorus on here? And we were like, news to us.
Yeah.
And we could literally write on the spot. It was like, make it simple, because to us, the things that we were bringing took that long to craft, and we put that much work into it. But actually, you can write it off the cuff. It is a simple thing. It's like, it's intricate, but it is like punk music. And as soon as Owen went, Lloyd, write a chorus, and he was like, oh shit, I ain't got a chorus for that. And then Lloyd was shuffled out of the room and wrote a chorus to £52 as quickly as he would have written everything else that he would write, because you'll sit down, you'll write something, you go, oh, there it is, craft it later. So our songwriting process, like Liam Gallagher says, oh, I write a song on the toilet or whatever. You can do, but unless someone tells you to write that song on the toilet, you don't know that there's a gap missing. And that literally hanging out with Owen for that pre-production entire period was, he got fucked, we got fucked, and we kind of came up with an extra tiny bit of an addition to some music that we could offer for the album.
Sad note, when I wrote that chorus of £52, I remember because my mum had bought me a mobile phone for Christmas, and it's like this clunky thing. And I remember
Price.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there was no lead to it. It was not connected to anybody. But I did end up ringing Chris Marseille, an old kid, to ring him to say, this is what I'm fucking sat at Grand Piano in the studio with Owen Morris, and I'm just buzzing. Do you know what I mean? Telling this story. I said, what are you up to? And he went, I'm playing at a house party in like Norwich, supporting the Arctic Monkeys. and just as a side note, I was like, what? It was like, at that time, the Arctic Monkeys are all kicking off on the internet and stuff. And he was playing in a house. Someone had booked the Morphines to support the Arctic Monkeys in a house.
That would have been Poochie, wouldn't it?
Probably, yeah.
It would have been Poochie, that.
But I remember doing it after I just wrote it on that piano.
Nice
Anyway,
touch.
Nice side note.
I wanted to talk about the origins of £52 because vaguely remember a story about Bill we know from Hull. Is it true he hung out a window and shouted it or something?
Yeah,
I'll need to hear this story.
It's a Tom story. This it was at Baggett's flat, wasn't it? Baggett's flat window.
You're on mute, Tom.
No, Tommy on mute.
Oh shit! Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So this was. I was just putting looks to bed. Yeah, this was at Baggett's flat near Jackson's on Prinny Ave, which is now Sainsbury's. And yeah, me and Bill hanging out the window. I think we were trying to get some change off just random people, or we were just absolutely off our heads. I don't know what on, but and we were just shouting 50 to a pound to people in the street, and like weird Bill being weird Bill, just being a bit weird out the window.
What, trying to buy a cigs or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There's loads of little
Cigs.
But there's loads of little things like those little, I want to say Paddingtons isms or whatever. Like the stray orange thing. We used to get these little things in our heads.
Yeah.
After that, we'd have said 52 a pound all the time, to the point where we've named a single. That got in the top 40, by the way.
And not the only one that got in the top 40.
Oh, yes.
Oh, fucking hell. All right. Anyone want to start pissing up against the wall in a minute? What?
Yes.
We used to talk about that, but what was that like when it does go in at top 40?
That was an insane day. That was another sort of milestone where you do, like getting the money and going to strip clubs and things. We actually was in a world where the top 40 was played on the radio, and we was playing a show in London. We was actually launching is it PSP?
Hey,
PlayStation?
Harry, someone made reference to it in a previous podcast to this. It was a great.
Ronnie Joyce,
Ronnie Joyce.
Right.
So there was us. There was Art Brew, the Unstrung.
That's when Art Brew slagged us off, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
But so we played this show, and it was at this point where you listened to the radio, and Radio 1 played the chart, and that's when you found out where you was going to be.
Right, we was playing at we did a gig at 100 Club. Was that like it's like Oxford Street or something? Yeah. Right. So I was doing a gig there, and I was on Oxford Street. Walked into Top Shop. It was fucking ace. Can't remember who I was walking about with, but walked into the Top Shop, and as soon as you walk in, it's like, well, it's a massive one, and they had this huge screen on there. And it was like, when I walked in, Franz Ferdinand or whatever, it's like, ooh, current indie hits, so this is nice. And then our video for 52 a pound came on the screen, and I just stood there and I was like, oh, that's what that feels like. Right there. And whoever I was with, like, people had like stood like looking at me in the shop or whatever, and I was like,
as you was literally doing cartwheels.
Cool. Well, no, I think I'd been sent probably by you guys to buy some new jeans because the crotch had gone out the ones I was wearing, and it was offending you in the band. So for whatever reason, I ended up in there. Walked in. I was on the big, like literally on the big screen. Got that immediate buzz. Bought my jeans, no discount whatsoever, absolute bastards. And then left to go play the 100 Club, and I think that's when like loads of like mad like kind of celebrity shit was going on. That's like when like Sadie Frost or like Scenesters used to come to all of our gigs. They were all real dirty kind of underground gigs, but quite well versed. And that was like the peak of it, like when celebrities turn up to your gigs, you're on a big screen in the shop, but you still smell like you still smell like shit because you're living out the back of a van.
And you still and then you trudge on back up the M1 and come back to Hull.
No, side note though, that's how mad indie got in the mid noughties. Like fucking Top Man was flogging it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We designed a T-shirt for him, didn't we?
Yeah, Josh. Never mind the bollocks. What did he put?
Testicular cancer messages. So we're invited to design a T-shirt. To be fair to Josh, he took all of the kind of like art production and stuff on board, and he's always fucking brilliant at it.
Yeah,
but his nuance may be slightly out. So it was like testicular cancer, and he put never mind the bollocks is the Paddingtons. Right, I never knew about it. And then we got the T-shirt, and I was like, "Fucking hell, man! Like, this is like quite high profile." And people bought the T-shirts. It made a lot of money for the charity. But I was like, "Josh, surely it should say mind the bollocks."
Yeah.
It's about checking your balls right. And I was like, "Dude, you could have put mind the bollocks." And he was like, "Oh, fuck."
Hey, side note, this is my catchphrase now. The actor in Hollyoaks, the gay Irish actor.
Seriously, I've got it here somewhere. I've literally got it here.
He wore it in Hollyoaks.
I had it on the other day.
I remember that. Yeah.
Grant's looking for it now.
I had it in my, 2 days ago, I had it in my hand, and I don't know where the fuck it is. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. I've got about 50 of them.
I'm good about that. I literally had it in my hand.
52.
Going back to Owen Morris then, obviously Tom's told us a few stories, but Marv, I remember it might have been on Instagram or something, you said about when did he stick your head down the toilet or something? Or like some mad recording techniques he had?
Oh, Marv.
Right.
Oh, Marv.
All right, so there's also that thing whereby, just as a side note, boys, do you know all of that clearance that Dominic Masters made you give? So he didn't reveal himself. We can sell Dominic out later, and in the same way, I'm saying this about Owen Morris, right? So I'll tell you exactly how things were between me and Owen. He pumped me full of gin in order to achieve some guitar parts that he desired. That was fine. I'm
sure he had to force you to do that, mate.
Yeah, he's not said where he pumped it though.
This is the best night in I've had in years.
So I've heard Tom's version of Owen Morris events, which, I mean,
could be slander, by the way. Tom.
Yeah, right. So what I'm saying about Owen is none of us know if he's still trying to hold his marriage together or anything. McGee said he was like.
Do you know where he lives
Aberdeen
now?
or something?
No. He's moved to fucking Peru.
Good. That makes total sense.
Then I'll go. But,
right, he's got a YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube channel where he's documented he's moved from Edinburgh to somewhere in Peru. Seriously.
Wow. Cool. Because when we got don't apologise. All of these embellishments all add up to the character of the fucking guy, even all these years later. So when we got in the studio with him, the thing he did to Tom, which was getting ease in you, and then locking you in a tiny room to you go mental, right? That was the vocal side of it. My side of it was here, sitting listening to you recording the vocals. He always put my guitars on afterwards, and it'd always be at 6 o'clock in the morning, which we would achieve. So I'd sit, drink a litre of gin, well, whatever else is going on, I won't say it, but it was there. And it was after that. So the thing that Owen did with me, and why I love the guy, but why I feel I had a very special relationship with him. He didn't give a shit about how I played guitar. He just knew what he wanted to get out of me. He had a special relationship with Tom because he loved to drag that singer out. But with me, he wanted the guitar in, which he did. But actually, he was my mate. My mate who wanted to torture me. And every evening, I'd go to sleep. And the situation of the studio was we all slept in. There was no in-house sleeping arrangement. It was like cabins outside. And mine was next door to Owen's. And I'd try to go to sleep on the night. And I'd just hear him going, "Oh, Marv. Oh,
knocking
Marv."
on the wall. Knocking on the wall.
Banging on the wall, like really traumatic, emotional abuse, really. And it was going on for a few days. And after a few days in the studio, when we were all together, we realised it was going to go mad. Like Tom and Josh got a bill sent to us for jumping off the roof and destroying a tree. We weren't destroying the studio. We weren't being rock and roll, like debauchery by standard, but things were happening. Mine was throwing the telephone out the window, threw it, and it hit Owen. And then he messaged me like 2 minutes later and was like, "Why'd you throw a phone at me, Marv?" I was like, "You stood outside my window, you mad cunt." And why do you keep going, "Oh, Marv"? And he was like, every time I'm going, "Oh, Marv," that's when I'm going on like a wanking marathon. And I'm doing it to torment you. And he was tormenting me every night, going, "Oh, Marv, oh, Marv."
The little voice in your head.
Emotional abuse. And I never knew, well, I kind of did. And I got him back in my own ways, which is fair enough. But
is that some sort of Welsh salty water torture?
But the thing about Owen extracting the best from a band was he really had to push Tom because he wanted to get this particular response from Tom as the singer. He got a great response from Lloyd and Grant by just like poking those guys. Like Grant was solid as fuck.
No, it was your shit.
Yeah.
Your shit, do better. Your shit.
Fair enough. Which he did with me, but
yeah.
And he pushed Lloyd. He pushed Lloyd to write. The thing why he was pushing me was just as it was a personal thing
to the edge.
It really pushed me. And the last day that I had in the studio, when Ali was coming to pick us all up, me and Owen had been up all night. Owen only let me in the studio when he was mixing. Like he'd let the rest of the guys. He wouldn't ever let anyone hear a mix. I was
get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out.
You got privilege for that.
See, he would let me sit next to him because I picked his fucking mixes to pieces, and he was like, "Oh shit!" Like from day one. So I'd always sit with him all the time. That made me his mate, which is my privilege, but also my curse. On the last day, me and Owen had been up all night. It was the last day. He showed me his the last mixes of what he'd been doing. I was like, "Their sound." And we've been in the studio the whole time, and I've grown quite a bit of a beard. By the time Owen came back to sit down with me after making a fucking cup of tea or whatever he's doing, I'd cut a Hitler tash in, right? Which is a very poor taste, but I did it to fuck with him. And I sat with Owen on the couch. I think I was watching like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
That film was on constantly.
Yeah.
It gave me nightmares.
I sat with Owen with the Hitler moustache, mentally scarred. The guy had absolutely he didn't beat me, but he's made me learn something. But I'd also made him learn. And I was sat there for 2 hours, and he didn't say a word. And I was like, Owen. Like, what? Like, Owen, what? I was like, Owen, look at me. And he just turned and looked at me and went, fucking hell, Marv, you're going home now. Like, I was like, Ali's coming at lunchtime. He went, no, you're going home now. He gave me 300 quid, ordered a taxi, which came in 20 minutes. I only had to wait 6 hours. He went, you're not going to survive another 6 hours here, mate. Neither am I. He ordered a taxi. They picked me up, took me to the train station. I got a train from Hastings with the change to London, London to Doncaster, Doncaster to Hull. And I got home just as you guys were all getting home in the van. Because you're on the phone going, are you all right? Have you got home all right? And I was like, does anyone else feel like they're being fucking molested? We all did, but I had a real special relationship with that guy. I'd love to find him, but it was literally like that. I did shave my Hitler tash off before I got on the train.
Yeah, good. Good.
But I got in. I was getting loads of shit on the train ride home, because when the teas, coffees, beers, and snacks person came up, I was ordering. I ordered all of the gins. Yeah. I was like, "Can I have gin?" They're like, "What do you want?" I was like, "All of them." So I just got all of the gins. Then I went home and went to bed. When I woke up the next day, it was like none of it had ever happened. But honestly, one of the
if only.
And I'm sorry to go on with that story, but
have you had a boot?
It's psychologically made me into the strange fuck that I am today.
So the head in the toilet thing, was that just like an exaggeration, or did that actually happen?
I don't think you ever had to put my head in the toilet. No.
Right, I'm sure.
And that's what after what he's told you, that's what you're bothered about. Maybe that might be true.
I remember when we got there, he was like, "So you're the songwriter. So you think you're Mick Jones?" Because we'd been pitched to him as like a Clash sort of British punk band or whatever, and he went, "You're more Jimmy Purcey than Mick Jones." And I was like, "Fucking gutted."
because at this point we'd already done a single with Owen at the same studio before we'd done the album. So we turned up to the studio with the single without pre-production. So we walked into a pub in Catsfield where we recorded the album and where we recorded the single. We walked to meet him in the pub, and literally we walked in, he was sat there like fucking King fucking Dick with his fucking arms out. So you must be the fucking Paddingtons then.
Yeah, and he'd already fucked off the locals as well.
Yeah, already.
Yeah,
and he waved his black card.
Yeah, his black
card.
Yeah,
he put his card behind the bar, didn't he? Like,
for 2 weeks. Fuck, that was brilliant. And we went, let's go to the studio, we better do some work. This when we first got there, and he went, "Oh shit, I'm pissed. Someone's gonna have to drive my Jaguar to the studio." And Marv went, "I'll do it." Didn't have a license. We was in the van with Owen. Marv's
Josh took the Jag. I drove the van.
Josh could drive.
There you go.
Josh could drive. You all got in the Jag. Me and Marv got in the van, knowing that Marv couldn't drive, and me sat next to him going, "What the fucking hell's going on?"
We made it back with only a few scratches.
Yeah. Do you remember when he lost his Jag? He was in the pub and he went, "Oh, shit, where's my Jag?"
Left it in Hastings.
It got carted off. Because his manager was our manager. That's probably the link we got. And he was ringing our manager. It was Flash, wasn't it? The other guy that was kind of his manager.
Paul, wasn't it?
Paul, yeah.
Paul Flanagan.
And he was like going, I'm with these fucking idiots from Hull and I've lost my fucking Jaguar. What am I going to do? And it was in a compound somewhere, wasn't it?
Well, he was going,
I can't remember that.
I've lost my Jag. I can't remember where I parked it. It was like, we know where you parked it, mate. On WL's outside the pub.
4 days ago.
And they'd literally just carted it. But he was like...
I'm going to have to pause this and move.
So Owen had ditched his car, but he said that whenever his wife rang him and he was sat in the car, he could say that he was doing the car test for his recording, which was also the thing that he did at home because...
To get his credit card bills.
when he got home from doing recordings with bands like us, he had to capture his credit card statements being posted, so his wife didn't find out what he'd been spending his money on.
Those were the days.
I was going to ask Grant about, so like Grant was saying, he's quite hard on him, but did that kind of work for the band, do you think? Where he's quite, I don't know, did you kind of raise your standards because of that?
Yeah, because you wanted to, I mean, especially me, I grew up reading all the Oasis books and all. I knew all these characters from these books, Owen Morris being one of the key players in that story, like, and people like Johnny Hopkins, who was our press officer. There was all in these books that I read as a kid. So when you go to a studio with them, you're living the dream, you're excited, but you're also, you go in going, well, you want to do the job proper. But then, so there's that, your own expectations of what you want to do. But then, like Marv been describing, these strange, weird, unorthodox ways for him to get what he wanted from you, push you in them corners. It was bizarre. He got the best out of me by telling me I was Jimmy fucking Percy. So you think you're in the, and I never thought I was Mick Jones from the Clash or anything, but he prodded me, or put you in dark, weird positions. Like he like the good and bad and the good and the bad and the ugly. He made me watch that before we would even talk about the next song. Or he made me watch that film, Man Bites Dog, that mad Belgian fucking film noir, horrible film. And then he'd go, right, let's go do some music. He knew what he was doing. Well, I think he did. Did he?
Yeah, when I was
Sorry,
doing
someone got the
guitar,
TV on.
Oh shit! No, is that no? Yeah, right. There is a TV on. Sorry.
Sorry, mate.
when I was
Is it? Yeah, it's on the thing, isn't it? Sorry, I'm having to change rooms and my housemates. No, right. Do you know?
Owen Morris's trick of like on the guitars was loads of layers. That's like his like production technique. It is copyright Owen Morris. And we'd sit down and he'd listen to the intro to Green Day, American Idiot. I'd say 20 times, but it might be 100 times. And you're sitting there and it'd be like, and I'd be like, right, we're going to do that. Like, yeah, cool, man. I've heard it twice. That's all right. But he would go through it again and again because that's his angle for the song, his angle for the evening. But he's obviously a mentalist, so we really need to
right. I heard when you asked the question, you said you're going to ask me a question about Owen being hard on me.
Yeah.
As the drummer. I mean, he knew what album he wanted to make. He wanted to make a very angry album. And you got to poke the dog, haven't you, to get it to bite you. Who's the person that you need to poke? And so he used to like belittle me and poke at me and all them sort of things. And it made me angry. It made me really angry. And I think it reflected in the drumming. But then also, while he was sound checking the drums, you know, he was talking about American Idiot. He was literally A-Bing American Idiot to the drums that we was playing. So every time he told me to carry on playing, I could hear American Idiot in the background. So it was sort of spurring me on because I knew what he wanted me to do. And how high the standard would be. He wanted me to play like fucking Green Day, or that's what I thought at that time. So it was sort of like poke the dog, poke the bee's nest, and then get what you know. And I the guy's a genius because I think if you can see the reflection in the anger of the album, especially from the drum point of view, because it was like, fuck you, I'll hit it fucking 50 times harder, you fucking big twat.
Is it kind of like what people say about a good football manager? It's like knowing how to get the best out of each individual.
He is a maniac, but he's also a maniac who knows every single person. And he knew. I mean, if you listen,
it's the Brian Clough of production.
Yeah, well, you listen back.
It's all Cloughy does, mate. Cloughy does. You're brilliant. You're a piece of shit. You're gonna get your fucking ass kicked. He absolutely fucking ran.
No, but then
right
he also
over us.
But then he'll also, like, he adored Tom. And he did build you up. He knew exactly what he was doing with each single person. As you listen back to this, you'll see what Lloyd said, you'll see what Marv said, you'll see what Av said. and he knew exactly what he was doing before you'd even entered the room. He knew what he was trying to get out of you, and that's what makes the guy a genius.
Tom's the delicate flower who needed his ass patting there a little bit.
Yeah, delicate flower at kid.
That was the day that 10,000 Things got 1 out of 10 out of the NME and fucking killed them off.
Yeah. I
When
spoke
he became
about
a
that.
successful
Do
Hollywood.
you know when you remember exactly where you are when something happens? When we opened the NME that Wednesday, and 10,000 Things got 1 out of 10, and it was just like, fuck, they are done.
Yeah, ruined them.
Fucking ruined them.
Yeah, I was going to talk about your review because, like, I was reading it for the first time actually the other day, and from what Mark Beaumont's saying, it sounds like, I mean, he says he didn't expect, or people didn't expect you to come out with a good album, or like he described it as vital. But were you aware that you had to prove people wrong?
The thing about Mark Beaumont was, not even. Sorry, I take that back. Not all. Right. How many bands actually from Pop Tones that moved on to Universal Mercury actually released? I mean, most of them got shelved. Nobody expected any of these bands to be doing anything, and we came out with an album that literally blew the fucking speakers out.
Yeah, it was. I remember the review, and it's basically he compares Owen Morris to, is it Gil Norton, who did some Pixies stuff, basically. And what the full process we've just been describing, how our producer can be vital in a band's sound. He compares Owen to Gil Norton with the Pixies. There could have been some scratchy, strange, interesting things that became quite massive.
Mark sussed it out.
Yeah, and he was
And
right
was,
because
he was right. He was right in what he said, though. He's right in what he said.
And with all due respect to bands like potential, maybe the Unstrung. I mean, I love the Unstrung. They were great lads and a great little rock and roll band. I think people thought we was going to be an indie-pindy, Libertines-esque thing, and we were. And the Unstrung had certain songs that were like that, and the broader music press weren't going to have that. They weren't going to have that. And when we released that, it was for a start, it was a punk album. It wasn't like a Kinks-esque, Blair-esque, Libertines-esque talking about drinking your cup of tea in your house. You know, them like Englishisms. It was a, hey man, it was a good punk album.
Hey man,
I think what Mark's saying, I think everyone thought we was going to be literally a Libertines copyist band, and we were.
Yeah, Mark did his job because he is a switched on journalist, and the thing that he did recently by voicing out against the, what's it called, like the
landfill indie stuff.
Yeah, voicing out against that generic kind of grab all, which is a contemporary like poo-pooing of anything that happened at the time, and there wasn't like such a variety of bands and so much different stuff going on. Mark defended that brilliantly, whilst also at the time when he was his job as a music journalist, I mean, he assassinated a few bands. He gave us a fair crack of the whip, because we revealed our first album to him, which he rated as a surprise, and then maybe our second one, even though it was a step forward, maybe he didn't think we stepped forward far enough. All of his critiques, I would say, are pretty much fair enough.
He didn't write our second review, but he did. I've heard him speak about it, the second album, sorry. But I think the second record was a progression forward for us musically. We tried loads of new stuff, and an interesting producer, and it was, personally, it was quite a dark time for me. I was a bit drunk throughout all that lot. But we came up with a good piece of music. I'm proud of that record. Some of the best songs we've done are on that. The best song we've ever done is on that album, which is Tom's song, Heart Song. But the review said they're doing something that's good and on point, but people have been doing it a year ago. Yeah. And the thing is, we took too long to get it out. It took 3 years to get our second record out. 3 years. And I think we fucked it in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. But with respect to what Matt Beaumont did with his reviews, was if you got a review off Mark, it was a genuine thing. He has investigated music. Because our first piece in the NME was like, the Paddingtons, don't know whatever we're doing. They may as well have got the venue wrong. They might as well have got the venue wrong, or like just like said any bullshit. But it like opened and said the drummer opens by saying 1, 2, 3. Are you gonna be my girl? Right. None of our music is in a 3 for a start. Grant's never said, Grant's never said, "Are you going to be my girl?" So it was like it was a piece that was pushed in there because we was privileged enough to get a slot, but none of it meant anything. It was like, oh, here's a little bit of bullshit propaganda about the Paddingtons. Fair enough. It was like a positive write-up about nothing that ever happened. When Mark was doing his reviews for the NME, anything that he wrote about was very accurate as his position as a critic. Which is like you're in a privileged position when someone actually does give the time to give you a proper critique, even if it's bad or good. The critique was accurate. No one will say 1, 2, 3. Are you going to be my girl?
But when it did happen, and when he did get this chance to critique us, we gave him an album that he could actually critique, and the stars did align with what we were doing, with who was working with. And nobody expected us. Like you say, he says he didn't expect it. Nobody expected us to come up with that sound, that big, that full, and that full on. And I think it surprised a lot of people. But I think that's maybe what moved us on to the next sort of era of the band, because it could have been shelved and we could have been.
It's some shitty indie.
Less than that, yeah. It could have been not even that.
Did you know, like when you finished recording it and you listened to it, were you like, yeah, this is it, can't wait for people to hear it, kind of thing?
It blew the speakers out. It really did. I mean, but even when we was listening to it in the studio, I remember it going like, this is fucking huge. Like, we didn't play like that. Like the sound that came out the speakers was like I was talking about earlier, you know, the big production and things like that, the Green Days and all that sort of stuff. From the demos that we'd done before and from the single that we put out, not even close to going home with like not even a mixed CD in the van and going, fucking hell, what's this?
As an illustration, some old girl. The single was like heavily distorted. There's heavy guitars that we could put on, and it was 2 guitars, me and Josh. And when we re-recorded it with Owen, there were 22 guitars on there.
He does like his compression, and he does like his red wall. We all know that.
And that's all I ever needed to know.
Yeah,
it went from 2 to 22, like literally. To be fair, like it was recording with 2 guitars is quite green. You might have recorded a few little bits like to indulge yourself, whereas Owen walked in and was like, "Fuck this, layer it,
right?
Let's blow it out of the water." 22 guitars.
I don't know if you all remember this. I mean, going back to the Great Eastern Hotel when we chatted with Panic Attack, we had a first like sort of rough mix. And we got to listen to it in the hotel room, and there were some other bands that were on the same label at that time, and yeah. I remember, you know, you're asking me about how that felt, and was it a bit different when we put that record on to see other people's faces in the room go, you know, fucking hell.
Yeah,
I remember that.
There was 2 bands from Pop Tones in that room at that time,
and
who were signed at the same time as us, and both recorded good albums that never got released, which is a fucking shame. And one of them was Special Needs. It was a fucking brilliant record.
So to see it when you put the record on, we knew it was somewhat different from what, you know, it was big, but to see other people and see other people's faces that are your peers and almost say competitors, when their faces drop, then you know you're onto something.
The day we charted, 25. With Panic Attack, that was that day.
Was it 25?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like
Can't remember it. On Radio 1.
I thought it was 21.
Well,
No, that was a
we can
single
say
song.
that if you want. We can say that. I used to say we had 5 top 40 singles. Did we? Fuck.
It depends who he was talking to.
Yeah.
The only thing that was mad about Owen was because he's a proper, he's a studio head, right? He can't handle being outside. So like we've invited him to shows and he's turned up and like arrived, been like there 10 minutes and then gone, fuck this, and gone. He likes to be in his own little fucking bubble.
He used to heckle us, didn't he? Remember when he came to our show?
He came, but
Owen came, just started
then,
fucking shouting, "You shit!"
You shit. Well, no. Do you know what? Right? Are we recording, Harry?
Yeah, we'd have to include it, mate.
No. I want this. Right. So we played at Coco. We did a sold out show at Coco, and so the version of Sorry, what's on the album, they wanted, so Mercury wanted to release a single, but it's like fucking 6 minutes long or something. It's fucking crazy version. So they wanted to make it into a single version. Now they didn't want to use Owen, so that's when they brought in fucking Stephen Street and Chenzo Townsend, you know, of fucking Blair fame. So basically, we went from Oasis to fucking Blair, and they ripped apart Sorry. We made the single version and recorded it. Now, I mean, the rest of the lads, we can bring that up later and talk about it. But literally, so when Owen turns up to this fucking show at Coco, sold out, fucking massive, great show, we're playing the new version of Sorry, and he fucking realises halfway through that Stephen Street's basically changed the fucking, you know, he's come to us and he said, right, you need to change this, change that. And as we change it, and he loses his fucking mind. Absolutely, because there's a stop in it and all these sorts of things. And he fucking goes off his head at the side of the stage. And I'm watching him. I'm laughing like fuck. I'm like, and because he knows exactly what's happened. Stephen Street's come in and fucking changed what he thinks is probably, you know, his fucking track.
Yeah. So what was the contrast like between Stephen Street and Owen Morris then?
Stephen Street works 9 to 5. Owen Morris works fucking 5 to
9 till live.
We never started in the studio on the first album until 7 at night. We used to go, so you'd get up at like 4 in the afternoon and we'd go to the pub. And then we'd go to the pub, we'd drink till maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 maybe. And then we'd go back to the studio and start recording.
I know, but we always had that nice like little lunchtime period when we went to the pub, and that was when.
Was that lunchtime? Right? Was it lunch?
Yeah, and that's when Owen would make that little like studio engineer Simon, like the nice Christian guy who ended up up the tree.
He climbed the tree.
That's when he'd make him like set the studio up, and then we'd go back to exploit whatever amazing setup he'd done. But I don't.
What did we feed him to make him do that?
After that, you
so what did we feed him, that guy, like to make him climb the tree?
So Simon,
I think it was just exposure to people who didn't live in Hastings.
Didn't he get stuck up the tree as well? He couldn't get down. He's like a fucking engineer.
I think he climbed the tree because he was sexually frustrated because he really fancied that girl who used to come to the studio. What was she called?
Spice.
Lisa Morris.
Oh God. Yeah, Morris. Oh God. No. Have you spoken about Simon before?
Huh?
Harry, have you heard about Simon before?
Simon
was the studio engineer.
Right.
But
not
it turns out that he was like a born again Christian. Didn't drink, didn't do anything, literally didn't do anything. And then he had to sort of cattle wrangle the fucking tornado that was what was happening with us guys. But Owen Morris pretty much just fucking screaming at him. And this guy just sit there all day and experience what he was going for. But he did it as a Christian fucking sober fucking Bible.
Yeah, but as a good Christian, it was nice for a good Christian to meet Satan himself.
Had they worked together before or not then?
No, literally. So we moved into the studio, Catsfield studio. It's just on the outside of Hastings, and I mean it's a very famous studio. There's been lots of great albums made from there. But he came with the studio. Basically, he was the sort of doorman of the studio. But
And we
you know,
broke,
it's like
we broke him.
we not only broke him, we bent him to the ground.
Yeah. Go on, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
Fucking hell,
about because we ask bands about being part of a community of bands and stuff. And Lloyd, I saw you talk about supporting Baby Shambles at Brixton Academy in front of 5,000 and all that. So yeah, how was that time? Like the big gigs you were talking about?
Yeah, they were fantastic. There was a few leading up to the Brixton one. There was like, for me, there was two sets. There was like the big gigs that were linked to the community stuff. So like when we played Brixton with the Shambles, and we played some stuff with the Cribs. I remember playing with the Cribs at Birmingham Academy. All the academies basically. So you played with your mates, and usually you was like the main support, and that was fantastic. And but then the other gigs were like the ones, I guess, on our own steam, like the Glastonbury's, the Leeds festivals, or when we sold out Coco, Camden Palais, which burnt down now, isn't it? Is that been sorted, that, Tom?
It's Coco, Camden Palais.
That's right. Yeah.
Is it burnt down?
Yeah, they burned it down. There'll be a set of flats next week, won't it?
Yeah. No, but I mean, so there are two sets of the community gigs were great because you got to play with. So Baby Shambles fans, for example, were pretty much our fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The same. So you're playing these big stages. We was playing the gig where Doherty and Patrick had that fight or fake fight on. It was all on the news. It was great to be part of all that, and great to go on them big stages. I remember stood with all you lads when we was walking on.
Yeah, that was a different feeling, that wasn't it? Because there was one of them things where it was like, well, it wasn't our show, obviously, but yeah, and it was like the nerves were a little bit different on them big shows, obviously, because there was fucking 5,000 people there.
Yeah.
But
can you like?
But what as soon as we got through the first song, it was like.
No, but do you know when you talk about little
right.
moments? When you talk about little moments, it was moments like that when you're playing at Brixton Academy when somebody stood there with a torch showing you the way to go on stage.
Yeah.
Like, you remember the fucking Moonwalker video?
I knew this was coming.
Do you know what I mean? When you're getting walked through the backstage, and when somebody stands there with a torch to show you onto a stage, I mean,
and instead of Ali just shouting, if it's not Ali going, "Get the fuck on stage," when someone's going, Marv, you're going on stage now, and we're all like, oh fucking hell, we actually need to be on stage.
Are we going to
like
walk on music? No,
it's not like we are the guests of a band, but because we've been supporting Baby Shambles at any squat dog shit venue, all that stuff, it was to what when the crowd's going like cheering for Baby Shambles, and you walk on stage and all they want is Baby Shambles, and you walk on stage, and then they go, fucking nice one, you do your thing, without like no malice, because everyone who knows Baby Shambles knew us. They're like, give you your half an hour, fully support you. When you're in that big a venue, you can't even see the crowd because of the lighting. Like, that's why you have someone with a torch show you how to get on stage. Yeah. Then you're on stage, all you can see is the lights. And when the lights go down between songs, then you can see 5,000 people, and you're like, holy fuck, this is all right.
There were real big gigs, and that was being taken on. We got them gigs. I like a few bands who got them gigs with Baby Shambles or Libertines or whatever, and that was like the perks of being part of that community or being Pete's bandy like that week or whatever. And they were exciting. I mean, that's the biggest indoor gig we've ever done, probably. So that were great. But I loved those gigs. The ones I really loved were our gigs. So like I remember selling out Ulu.
Our dirty 1,000 capacity gigs that we sold out. Yeah, they were our own. Yes, when we were touring, when we spotted some great fucking bands, played with some great bands, and the hierarchy, never the twain shall meet. So like 5 O'Clock Heroes used to support us, and they were a bit more underground or, like a bit more niche than we were, and we were a bit more niche than the Rakes. But under that, like that level of bands, we would always sell out between us 500 capacity venues. But when we had ones of our own, like that, the Ulu gig, 1,000 people for ourselves, to walk on stage, and it's 1,000 people who love the sport bands who were with, but you get to headline. That's a fucking privilege, right? And that was like a real like here's your merit badge, nice work, lads.
Yeah, there was a few gigs, but then the more I think about it, so I split them into 2 gigs. The big gigs where we was part of the community and got them big support slots. But if we're honest, when we did Ulu, when we sold out Coco, when we sold out Liquid Rooms, QMU,
it's sort of that tour, wasn't it? It was that tour where the big ones hit. So there was Birmingham Academy 2. We was knocking out Leeds. Fucking what are they called? It's shut now. Leeds.
Cockpit.
I mean, even that's the big one. I mean, as much as the capacity, but to sell out the Cockpit, to go to Leeds and sell out.
But I guess what I'm saying is that we had our bands, we had our community, so we used to take Turismo on tour with us, or Holy Orders from Hull. So I guess that's what it is anyway, isn't it? So we was part of this big Libertines-esque London community. We had our own one as well, really.
We got our leg up and our privilege. Like, we was never going to sell out Brixton Academy, but at least 3,000 people out of the 5,000 knew exactly who we were. And
but to pass on that community thing though, I think that's a big thing that that what we took on. You've always got to move it down. Yeah.
We used to get asked in, like we'd get interviewed by the NME or interviewed by Dazed and Confused or whoever, and they go, "What are you listening to now?" And we had this thing where we wouldn't even know we was listening to the Cribs or was listening to the Strokes or was listening to this new album.
Or listening to like a Replacements album that we found from like fucking 30 years ago.
We'd say, what's your top 5 bands at the moment? We'd deliberately list 5 whole bands.
Turismo, the Dirty Dreamers.
We just listed Matt Edible's song or Morphines.
I still genuinely would always say, like, what's like your top 5 bands that you've ever listened to, and I'd probably have to slip the Morphines in my genuine top 5 live bands that I've ever seen.
We still
no worries, still now.
He had real good trainers.
But that sort of essence of passing it down, but also the sense of bringing Hull up as well.
Yeah,
we always did that, and you know, like earlier we were saying, we was always looking outwards. Hull was always very much the nucleus of where it was from, though, and that was never ever changed. Hull was always the epicenter of what we was doing.
Yeah, but like supporting Hull is like we needed to support these like absolutely amazing Hull musicians who were writing music not the same as ours. Yeah, maybe better on a level, whatever it was. But we managed to get a van and leave town, and a lot of those guys never did. And like to get them in the van meant that they got the fuck out of there, didn't it?
Obviously, like leaving the country as well. Like when we remember the first time we went to Japan or like Russia, anywhere in Europe. Like they were massive times as well for us, where we felt like, oh, do you know what we're doing? Like you said, we're doing something right again.
Do you know what, Tom? The first time we went to Japan was the first time I'd been on an aeroplane since I went to Corfu when I was about 7, and I shit myself. And
I remember me and you sat together, didn't we, on the flight?
You didn't. No, you didn't. Do you know why you didn't sit together?
Or did we have to get separated because we were both shitting our pants?
No, do you know why you didn't sit together? Because every time that we got on a plane, everything went in fucking alphabetical order. So Silly Cunt got to sit next to Silly Cunt, didn't he? Yeah. So every time I had to sit next to my brother, didn't I? And
that's quite accurate. Because any time we got on a plane, I ended up sat next to a Silly Cunt as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but me and you, Lloyd, was always the one with the panic attack, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember that flight to Japan, and
it was a connecting flight from Hong Kong to Tokyo, wasn't it? And Nathan was pretending that he was on a fucking roller coaster because the turbulence was so bad. I fucking hated him that flight.
No, right. So this is the plane, the connecting plane from. It was actually to Osaka, because I will never forget it. From Hong Kong to Osaka, and it was like a jumbo jet with 500 seats. There was possibly 20 people on the plane.
So we all sprawled out.
So we all sprawled out and did all, and
What-
it was all fine.
It
was like a ghost plane.
Do you remember the in-flight movie? It was
No, I don't.
Demolition Man. I remember.
It's one of my personal faves. Also, the thing that was pretty cool with after the first few flights of having Lloyd on the plane, Grant, Tom, and Josh all know how to fly, as do I. We're all just like, we're on a plane. It's normal. If you die, you die. Lloyd's like, oh my god, I'm definitely gonna die. And Lloyd was always pressing the button to get the attendants to come up, and then they'd come over, and like long haul flights, there's no limits on your drinks, and we used to get on the plane by taking 2 Nitol.
Oh yeah, we used to.
And then you press the button, and the like attendants, male or female or whatever, would come over and be like, oh, what can I get you? I'm like, can I have 2 beers, please? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Back, I was like, and what does my friend want? And that was to say, like, Lloyd also needs 2 beers. So me and Lloyd used to always order the 2 beers. Can we have 2 beers, please? Can we have 2 beers every single time until he went to sleep, basically.
Right.
And when he went to sleep, then I was allowed to enjoy Demolition Man for the 500th time.
Oh, right, but so the Hong Kong Osaka flight was as the only way you can explain it is it was turbulent for the whole flight, as in like we experienced turbulence for 4 hours, and basically the pilot came on the tannoy and said, I basically tried to fly the plane at every altitude, and there's turbulence no matter what's happening, so we're literally just going to have to sit it out. But this was like pretty much the Titanic of planes for 4 hours. 4 hours of...
Yeah, but also like that's his view from like the pilot's cabin. From the passenger aspect, I'm sure we had to do our own personal tannoy and say, with apologies, there will be turbulence on this flight, and whilst there is turbulence, this guy's going to be chatting shit and holding onto his seat.
this guy's going to be very turbulent.
Hey, Harry, I did. This is like whole layman's fucking language for aviation. I mean, should we talk about music or something?
No, Lloyd. Let's talk about you being an absolute fucking terrible flyer.
Do you remember?
Because it was a big part of what we used to do.
It was them 2 years where we flew all the time, every flight. He hadn't got it down like Grant. He's like, fucking class, he's got it down,
sort
dickhead.
your fucking head out.
Sorry,
Get
it down, lad, get it down.
But so then that leads us on to when we had to fly a propeller plane into Jersey from Cardiff. So a jet engine on a big fucking Boeing 7 whatever, that's absolutely fine. When you get on a plane when there's probably 30 people and a propeller on each side, that's when Lloyd's ass really goes.
Hey, all them gigs, all them flights led to positive gigs. We had some cracking gigs in Japan, and the Jersey gig was good. That was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Hot tubs in Jersey.
I got throughout the festival.
Oh, hot tubs in Jersey, that was a real good gig. I forgot about that. With them Geordie guys who was living in Jersey.
Builders.
Yeah.
We work in construction, but we have to live in Jersey.
Yeah.
Textiles, yeah.
Tax.
Just going back to Japan, like, what was the reaction there? I mean, I saw an interview with you, Grant, where you said you had some Japanese guys ringing you in Hull for the next year or something.
Oh, yeah. I still sort of converse with Kiori. She's no, not quite anything like that. But still
easy, Tom.
Yeah, was it a crazy reaction kind of thing? Like,
well, as a reaction, I mean, Japan was probably the only place where we went to where it was, I'd say, like Hollywood reaction. So we did like a press junket, where you go there and you move from room to room and you do interview, and you just sit there and do that all day. Do you imagine what film stars do when
it was
they're
our
releasing?
It was our Beatles moment, wasn't it? Get there,
yeah, pretty much.
You land at the airport and there's actually fans at the airport.
And they had New York Dolls cakes. No,
Yeah, they had made us cakes, yeah, and like
So I mean, that was probably the one place where we went. You know, like there was people stood outside our hotel that stayed there, and things like that. But I mean, obviously, being the people that we are, we took them for a drink.
Yeah, so like when we turned up, right, it was like it's like it's like a culture away from culture. So when we turned up at it wasn't that big, so we turned up at the airport and people were holding up signs, but we had a guide, we had like everything sorted out for dealing with our shit when we got there. And then when we went to our hotel, there were like fans hanging about and stuff like that, and everywhere we went there were people who they knew we were there, they knew like kind of where we was going. And when we went out into the street, like me and Tom were like, fucking hell, look, this gang of girls have been following us. And they kind of like hide behind lampposts or whatever. And we turned around and was just like, hello, how are you doing? And they were like, oh my God, they're talking to us. We're like, all right, how are you doing?
Remember when we're
going to McDonald's, do you want to go for a drink? Like, do you want us to sign some shit? Like just to like break a barrier, which was mental. And that was like literally within the first hour of us getting to our first hotel. Everything after that was even more crazy. The gigs were perfectly sold out, like not over demanded.
I've got a really weird memory of me and you walking across that massive crossing in Tokyo in dressing gowns.
In Shibuya, yeah.
Remember?
Shibuya crossing, which is in, what is it? Like, Lost in Translation. Right, the movie Lost in Translation, and loads more. Like that crossing in Shibuya is where the Hotel XL was, where we were staying.
Yeah.
Me and Tom stayed up all night. Walked out the next day in the complimentary robes from the hotel, like not nude underneath or anything, but it was like, right,
because that'd make it weird.
Oh no, it was weird enough, but me and Tom were like, right, we'll hit the streets, don't show your knackers, don't get posted home, but I wanted to test it. And a beautiful thing about Japanese culture is because it rains, they'll leave umbrellas in the street. So me and Tom both picked up like transparent umbrellas. We're two fucking white dudes in the middle of Japan, which if you look around, it's Shibuya Central, right? You don't see many tourists, like at all. Like whatever you might
you too.
So me and Tom are in robes, both pick up clear umbrellas, and people are riding by on the bicycles. It's not raining, and we have clear umbrellas. We was running next to them, just running along to pretend that they were stopping them getting rained on. If it was America, you'd have got shot. They'd have punched you in the face, like some mad shit would have gone down. These people were just loving us. We look like performance artists. Me and him were running around.
Oh, you were fucking artists, all right.
By the time we got knackered from running about, we just went to McDonald's in our robes. Everyone's looking at you like, ooh, this is weird. We didn't think anything of it. Got a burger, went back to the room, was like, what the fuck just happened? And we was like, this will probably never happen again. And if we don't get arrested, then good for us. But we were literally running down the street, like finding umbrellas in the street. It was like a dream, really.
Yeah, but you're saying that though. I remember that time you did exactly the same in Stoke.
Tuesday night in Stoke.
Do you remember in Tokyo when there was that guy the English guys or the European or English guys you met in Japan, there was always there teaching English or whatever. They'd be on the piss wheel. We'd go to that Sex Pistols bar when we went a couple of times getting pissed in the band.
Yeah, the punk rock bar.
And there's just
one
guy.
of them Sting's son.
This is where I'm going. You stole my story.
Yeah.
But on the last day, he went. I hadn't told you this because I didn't know. I didn't want it to affect because he was with us for like the 4 or 5 days we were there. Didn't buy anything good though, did he? But anyway.
No.
But on the last day, he went, "Oh yeah, I'm Sting's son," and we was like, "Oh, it was like the last night having a bit of scram before we got on the plane." We was like, at first we were like, "Fuck off," no, and then we was like, we was all sat there, conversing, going, "Yeah, don't Sting's son, don't Sting, he don't give his, sorry, start again, don't Sting not fund his kids? He's out on his own, he's struggling." And then we was all like, "Definitely him, it's definitely Sting's son."
Definitely him. Oh. I'm going to say some real derogatory about Geordies then. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Also, right, that's a true statement of whether you've been successful in a band. Have you got very mature children who have never met the father? Sting can tick that box.
What are you going to say about the gigs in Japan, Marv? You said they were sold out.
Right, so right, the gigs in Japan, they have like as we found, they have this the total punk rock element, and there's a lot of output from Japan, like anime. I don't know, this collective of things that you think come out of Japan are true.
Hey, the greatest punk rock band of all time comes from Tokyo, Guitar Wolf. The bass player died of a heart attack on stage. 1, 2, 3, 4. They thought it was Ramones, but they were. Yeah. Anyway.
For us to turn up in Japan, we had a guide. We got taken around, like we got to kind of experience Tokyo and Osaka, but we was greeted into Japan, and
hey Marv, sorry,
got to get a feel of it. But
start again, Marv, sorry. Gigs, go on the gigs, because talk about the gigs.
Yeah, I'm going for the gigs, right? So
get there, brother.
Right. When we got to Japan, we were shown Japan, and then taken to our gigs. Right. So
there you go.
The weird fan thing. People want to see you, like you are like an import and kind of exotic or whatever. Like if you talk to people, they want you to be a celebrity. They want you to have the distance. And me and Tom were, like all of us were like, all right, hang out, have an high five. When we went and did the gigs were 500 capacity gigs at brilliant fucking venues, probably oversold by 1 or 2 tickets at each time at the most. But it was 500 cap. All the Japanese fucking kids come in. If it was COVID times and you made it into a bigger venue, they would naturally space from each other, right? So they're all rebels. They're all there to kick and spit and kick the fuck off, but they only do it at the correct times. So
only when they're told to, or told
to. Like if you
when
prompt,
the music's on.
if you prompt them, then they will. But on their own, there'd be like a kid at the front, or like the front line would be the kids, and they'll be going, yeah,
fuck you.
And they know the words like fuck and shit, and they know a few decent swear words, so they're really going at it right in your face. And then and it kind of goes from fucking shit up until like ultimate politeness at the back, and there's probably about 5 rows, and we had 500 capacity for the gigs. So you play like fuck. They're all absolutely moshing, like free, diving about, punching each other in the face, doing all that shit. As soon as you get to the end of a song, they stop, and they'll stop.
Silence.
Clap.
And then wait for the next track.
And then they wait for the next song.
It's bizarre.
So you go again. And you go again, and you go again.
In between songs, we'd be like, it was so quiet. You're talking on stage, laughing.
Trying to MC between songs. So they're like, wait, like the first time they're all there, they're going crazy, and you're like, my God, this looks like perfection. And actually, maybe it is. Like they're quite organised with their abuse of each other and their elbowing and the violence and all that shit. And then after 10 seconds of tuning up where you were like going, oh yeah, fucking hell out with ace lads. Like if it was an English gig, you can tune up for a minute and people just go more mental. In Japan, after 15 seconds,
Silence.
I will never, ever, ever forget that. Because you're
and
like,
then there's still
what's gone wrong? What have we done?
nothing has gone wrong. There is just
that.
that. There is just the silence, and then you go, mic check 1 2. Yeah,
and then Lloyd would say some absolute fucking shit.
Yeah,
about
no, but the way for you, the way for Tom to talk, and Tom just goes, "Yeah, this is weird, isn't it?" and then Lloyd's like trying to scoop Tom out from his own ass by going, "Yeah, thanks for having us." Then we realise there is a 10 to 15 second gratuity applause. Spitting, because if it was any other gig, they won't spit, they won't throw the V's or whatever, because it's a punk gig. They're allowed, like, guys were asking me, they're like, oh, we go, like, middle finger, like, V's, like, we spit. And we're all like, go for it, go for it. I'm like, can you not do it for more than 15 seconds? They're like, no. So they will do the 15 seconds. So we had to get used to that fucking thing, which is great. Everyone kicks off at the end. They give you like a huge round of applause, like end of gig, like absolute mental thing. You could crowd surf, you could do what you want. You walk off stage, then they're all lined up to get the T-shirt signed.
Yeah, that was
every single person.
Single file.
They line up, single file, real quiet, and we'll ask for your autograph and bring you gifts and stuff. Yeah. It's like
I've still got.
Is that's like a decent recollection of it, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Oh, also, Johnny Oppo's just sent me a message saying he can't wait to listen to this. So we're gonna have to mention Johnny Oppo.
I already mentioned Johnny Oppo.
Oh, Johnny.
I know you did.
Do you know what? We played. Hey, last thing on these gigs in Japan. My memory says, the gigs were about 7 o'clock at night as well. It was weird. We went out for meals after
What
it.
do you mean?
Yeah,
what do you mean the last
after.
thing? Has anybody mentioned the fact that these gigs were on like the 9th and 10th floor of buildings?
Yeah, it was weird.
Right, so you can drive in. You can drive in a truck into these venues where we were playing, and an elevator will take it up, and you can unload. This is.
No, but it's not just the venues. That's the buildings in Japan, right?
That's a building.
If you walk around in Japan,
it's an architecture podcast now.
If you saw a shop,
architecture piss,
like a clothes shop, like on the ground, and you can see everything, like hundreds of fucking like buildings all in a row. They're all 20 stories high. Every single one would be like, right. So what's on the ground floor? Clothes shop. What's on the second floor? People live there. What's on the third floor? Aquarium. What's on the fourth floor? They're literally like that. There is no correlation between what goes on in the buildings. None whatsoever.
What's on the fourth floor? Explora's World.
A 500 capacity venue on the top of fucking Hull Royal Infirmary. But because there's no windows,
people live in between those floors. Yeah, you don't have a clue, but you need to know what floor you're going to. And if you press the wrong one, the doors would open, and it'd be like, "I'm in the lingerie section."
There's your
Tommy, have you spoke about finding a pair of Hull City gloves in a fucking thrift shop?
That was Si, that wasn't it? He found a scarf. Hull City scarf in one of the vintage shops.
I thought it was a pair of gloves, the pair of thingy gloves.
Was it?
Like mittens. I thought you found the mittens.
Yeah, it was mad that, wasn't it? That was Si. Found it in a vintage shop.
Oh, I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him about legend, it. Yeah.
Si, the legend that is our sound engineer.
Did you know about me and Josh bumping into Paris Hilton?
No.
Yeah.
I always thought that was you and Tom. So it was you and Josh.
Me and Josh.
Go on, yeah.
It's worth it just to say it, right? So me and Josh went out for a little afternoon walk. Didn't get in a taxi anywhere. Just went off on our own, no guide. So you always need to know that you can walk back. Went out for a little stroll, walking through various fucking arcades, all the massive buildings, whatever. We got to a crowd of people, and there's like a gathering outside of a shop. I think it might have been like, I don't know, like fucking.
The TV.
Who's that?
Fucking hell.
Is that
Is
Grant?
it Grant? Little bastard.
Can't you mute him, Harry? You're in charge.
I can actually, yeah.
Yeah, you can. You should know better, Harry.
There we
you
go. Go on, Marv, sorry.
Right, so I'll tell you this. Me and Josh went out for our little mooch. We're getting so far. There's a group of people stood outside a shop, like Vivian Westwood or like some designer, but a real decent crowd of people. And we're literally walking up the street. We decide that it's worth seeing what all the fuss is about. And while me and Josh are stood at the back, I don't know, it's a bit of a trite thing to say, but Josh is taller than all of us. Like, me and Josh are stood at the back of the crowd, very white, very tall, and quite prominent. Paris Hilton comes out. Completely randomly, but Paris Hilton comes out and she's like, "Hey, I'm really pleased to announce my new perfume. So glad to see you guys." And all the crowd are going, "Oh yeah, oh real good to see you, Paris. Like absolutely buzzing." And me and Josh were like, we'd actually seen a big wheel. It was like, we're gonna go to that big wheel over there. But in the meantime, Paris Hilton has literally walked out of this thing. What we're gonna do? Josh is pretty cool at reaction to celebrities. He was either going to suck her off or do what he did.
What
This
did
is
he do?
What he did was
turned
to
into
go-
house party mode, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Josh scooped me up
Should we call it in
to
again?
him, and he was like, "Oi, Paris! Paris!" She could fucking hear us. She saw us, and was like, "Hey, fuck you!" So me and Josh gave Paris Hilton 4 middle fingers, and she was like, "Oh."
She's had that before.
What is going on here?
Fuck off, right? Mate, right.
I swear to God, this is exactly. You could not believe you look like I have to go all the way to Japan for something that ran into happen. We gave her the middle finger.
Oh, middle finger.
She receded. She receded back from when she came, and me and Josh just took me up the street, and I was like, "Did we just totally 4 middle finger Paris Hilton?" He was like, "Yeah, we did." And then we went and got on a big wheel.
Anyway,
Hey, there was loads of big wheels in Tokyo.
Guys,
to
I've
be
gotta go.
continued.
My battery's gonna die. I've got to go.
To be continued.